Are members ready to start the meeting? Okay, welcome everybody to the meeting of Derbyshire Dales District Council. I'd like to welcome the members of the public. Just for your information, there is a toilet just outside the door that way. And if the fire alarm goes off, we will need to leave the building quickly. Agenda item 1 is apologies for absence. Do we have apologies for absence?
Yeah, Councillors Bates, Bond, Mrs Burfoot, Chapman, Murphy and O'Brien.
Okay. Agenda item 2 is election of chair. That's to you, Barbara, is that right? Oh, it's for me. Okay. Can I request nominations for chair, please?
Madam Chair, can I please nominate Councillor Roger Shelley as chair of this authority? I'm sure you all know Roger's capabilities through his attendance on this council, and I think he'll be a very fair and strong chairman. Thank you.
And do we have a seconder? Councillor Dobbs?
Happy to second Roger Shelley.
Any more nominations? Nope. Okay, all in favour? I think that's unanimous. Anybody against? Abstentions? Okay. Roger Shelley is elected chair.
Point of order, while we're shuffling papers, can I just thank Lucy for excellent chairing 2 very difficult meetings this winter, and I hope to see you back in the chair position at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, while Roger's taking his seat, I'm not sure why Steve's left, but I would like to thank him for all the time he spends as chair of this council. I think he's done an exceptionally good job, and certainly from this side we'll be sorry to see him go.
Well, thank you, members, for your vote of confidence in me. I hope I can live up to the high standards set by my predecessors. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda, please, if we may then, which is item 3, public participation. I believe we have 2 speakers tonight. If we could have the first of those, please. So that's in reverse order to what you see on your piece of paper. In fact, there's only 2 of you, so don't worry. So Neil Mulden, please, if you could make a statement, please, on behalf of Derbyshire Dales CVS.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. As many of you probably know, I'm the Chief Officer of Derbyshire Dales CVS, and I'm here to just speak in support of item 18 on the agenda, which is about a one-off grant in the next financial year for Derbyshire Dales CVS. As I think is explained very clearly in the papers, we lost or will lose 40% of our core funding next year due to withdrawal of all discretionary grant aid to the voluntary sector across Derbyshire by DCC. And obviously that's very damaging for the voluntary sector across Derbyshire and in the Derbyshire Dales. I made the District Council aware of this situation quite early, and I'm really pleased that the proposal has been brought forward to give us an extra grant next year. I see that very much as a bridging grant, really. I think it would just give us chance to re-stabilise the organisation, and as is mentioned in the papers, I'm retiring soon, so to enable a new chief officer to get his or her feet under the table and start to address some of those funding issues that we will undoubtedly have. What I would say is that I think, as well as a grant to the CVS, it's also supporting the voluntary sector across the Derbyshire Dales. We have 250 member organisations, and I think we give quite a lot of support to a high proportion of those through the year. And we also run projects like social prescribing, which support some of the most needy and vulnerable people in the community. I think 700, for instance, in a recent year. So it's not just about supporting us, it's about supporting the voluntary sector in Derbyshire. So thank you very much for considering this proposal, and I hope you adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If we could have our second speaker, who also has up to 3 minutes, that's Mark Dinsdale, a local resident.
Thank you for letting me speak. I hope, I've never done this before, I'm slightly nervous, but I'll do my best. So I wanted to make a statement about the council meeting in December, where there was a potentially agreed a development of traveller sites in the Derbyshire Dales, in particular including the site in Middleton. I was sort of amazed to wonder why Middleton site was not removed as a potential site, as happened in several cases, such as the one in Wirksworth. Am I loud enough? I cannot fathom how a site located only metres from a local graveyard is an appropriate site. I did wonder, have council members actually ever seen this site other than on a map? It's a beautiful site in virgin lands situated between the conservation area of the village and the SSSI, the Vigelia woodland. It's surrounded by farmland, a moor, and it's less than half a mile from the Peak District. Just no other development would ever be considered on such a site. The DCC's own report suggests the site location next to a graveyard is inappropriate, and as the current tenant was actually told when he tried to purchase it, he was told it was intended as an extension to that graveyard, not for other use. My main issue with the December meeting is that I felt like there was a lack of representation of the residents from Middleton and their objections. I was naive in understanding the process, without a doubt, having completed the residential surveys, attending the local meetings, and hearing what was said. It was clear that the residents were against this, and I assumed that would have gone forward. However, and as the DCC report said, the vast majority of residents were against the development, as was the case in the local meeting, and it therefore should have been clear to our councillors that the village and the residents were against the development. It was noticeable as well, watching the meeting on YouTube, that there was no public representation from any residents in Middleton, and I think this was again based on a naively assumption that it was not seriously being considered as a place. And to some extent that was the feelings that I got, and I know several other residents got, that was the feeling we were getting from our local councillors. And so I do feel, and when the actual vote took place, my two local councillors, 2 abstained, 1 voted for, clearly having seen the feelings of the residents. And that to me strikes as a lack of democratic representation. At a later parish council meeting, which was followed on from that, it appeared the council didn't even know how close that site was to the graveyard. They hadn't seen the detailed maps, and I was quite disappointed that that was the case. So, am I all right for now? So this suggests to me, I felt overall there was a bit of a political strategy going on, and I know there's been a change of political sense, and I felt like that there was a keenness of the council to see to be achieved something with such a political hot potato, I guess is the word. But I do concern myself that has that been at the expense of the residents in Middleton? Are we an easy scapegoat? A small population who haven't made much fuss, I know, compared to some sites, not as big as some city things like Ashbourne, who've got lots of people to oppose. Sorry, I do apologise.
Could I draw your to a close now, if
Yep,
possible, please.
sorry. So, yeah, I would really like the council to reconsider the proposals and to remove the Middleton site. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If we could move now then to item 4, which is approval of the minutes of 2 previous meetings. That's on the 28th of November and the 9th of December. So members are asked to approve the accuracy of those. Could we have a proposer, please, for those? Councillor Wilton, and a seconder, please. Councillor Lees. Thank you. All those in favour, please. Any against? And any abstentions? One abstention over there. Councillor Whitehead. Thank you. In which case, can I ask now for item 5, which is interests. So members are asked to declare any interests they may have in the items which are coming up for discussion tonight.
I have a non-pecuniary interest in the funding application for Derbyshire Dales CVS. Okay. So I will leave the meeting at that point, just to avoid any confusion and just to be transparent.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm actually a member of Derbyshire Dales CVS. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to stay or I have to go. But
So I missed that.
Councillor G is a member of Derbyshire Dales CVS. Does that mean he has a pecuniary interest?
Which item?
It's currently item 18 on the agenda.
Yeah. I think you don't have a disclosable pecuniary interest, Councillor, but you do have another interest. It's entirely up to you whether you leave the room while the matter's being discussed, but you shouldn't take part in the discussion.
right, thank you.
Chair, yeah, I have to declare an interest in item 12 on the council tax premium policy, because we may fall into the a member of my family may fall into the option of having an empty home over a certain period of time. So I will declare that interest and I will leave the room.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. All right. Well, thank you for that. In which case, I'd like to propose, it has been put to me to suggest a change in the order of the agenda items tonight. So bear with me on this because it's fairly complex. I know we've had a new item 19 which has been thrown in fairly much at last minute, but that's an urgent item. So there is a suggestion that that is actually moved a long way up the agenda to become, I believe, the new item 9. Correct me if I'm wrong here. So it's also the case that we have Karen with us tonight, but in order to relieve Karen of having to be with us right towards the end of the meeting, it's suggested that those items that Karen deals with are also moved up the agenda. And finally, bearing in mind our guest from Derbyshire Dales CVS here tonight, that item 2 is also moved up the agenda. So if you can follow my reasoning here and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that then means that the first homes signatory item, if we make that item 9, if what was item 18, which is to do with Derbyshire Dales CVS, becomes item 10, if item 11 is the former item 10. Are you following me so far? I'm relying on officers here as well. Councillor Wayne.
I've got item 9 as the motion.
Yes.
So is it going before the motion?
Ah, well, okay, so this is another point. I have asked the mover of the motion if they would consider a particular action on that, and I'd like to invite them to put forward either a deferral or a suggestion that is moved towards the end of the agenda.
Happy to defer that, Chair.
Which would you prefer to do?
We'll defer it.
Defer it. Okay. Councillor Wayne, I hope that answers your question. Brilliant. Thank you. Councillor Nash.
The emergency item number 19, it's not on the published agenda, it's not on Modern Gov. Where will I find any details of it?
Good question.
Sorry? It's not, I'm looking at Modern Gov, it's not there. I've just brought up the latest version. I logged out, logged back in again, and it's not there.
Councillor Nash is talking about the extra item at the very end.
Yeah.
Not the motion. Do you have details of that?
Could someone produce some paperwork and circulate it so we can all see what it is? Unless it's a massive item, of course.
Chair, just to help, sorry. I hadn't the problem before, but it does. If you go on to the ModGov business and where it says recently published, it'll bring up a new agenda item, and if you tap on that, that should bring in the one with everything on.
Councillor Bull, I'm indebted to your IT finesse. Thank you. So, just back to the order then of the meeting. So we've got as far as the new item 10 being the former item 18, new item 11 being the former item 10, 12, 13, 14 remain as they are, 15 would then be the former item 11, 16 the former item 15, and if we're all still awake and alive by the time we get to the new item 17, which is the former item 16, and the new item 18, which is the former item 17. Thank you. Is that right? Okay. So do we have does that mean we've got a motion to defer an urgent item?
I don't want to defer an urgent item, but we can't possibly do justice to 220 pages of documentation.
Even 40 pages in a meeting, that's unacceptable.
If I could just explain, members, the urgent item. The item itself is extremely straightforward. It's purely asking members to extend a delegation that the Community Environment Committee gave to the Director of Housing at its meeting on the 30th of July this year to include the Director of Corporate and Customer Services, myself, and the Chief Executive. All the delegation does is authorise the Director of Housing to sign any legal documentation in respect of first home purchasers. In the event Mr Coggins isn't here, rather than delay matters, we'd simply like the delegation to be extended to include myself and the Chief Executive to sign those papers. And that's all this report is about. The reason why it's urgent is that we need to, Mr Coggins is not here at the moment, and we need to make sure that we're able to sign legal documentation so that our public aren't prejudiced by any delay, and that is it.
Does that go far enough to answer your question, Councillor Whitehead?
It does, but it's still really disappointing because I don't think Rob's just gone off sick, has he? He's been off for a little while, so you could have submitted this with the paperwork last week.
I understand where you're coming from. Councillor Wayne.
I don't think we should be discussing an officer's welfare in open forum. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I sense that too. Okay, and Councillor Lees.
Can we move on, Chair? Because
yes.
we could have discussed this item whilst we've been going to and
absolutely,
fro.
Absolutely, yes, yes. I do understand that. Okay, all right. So, with members' agreement, then, we will move on to item 9, which is the... Oh, hang on a minute. Excuse me, apologies. We have the Chair's announcements, first of all. Item 6.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I'll be as brief as I possibly can because we've got a big agenda tonight. You've got the report in front of you, all the events I've been to. Last November I went to Swadlincote at the end of November to see the switch on of the Swadlincote lights. It was a fantastic display and entertainment, all kinds of entertainment. It was a really great night. I'll move on again quickly. On Tuesday the 3rd of December, my consort and myself attended the University of Derby. Again, a lovely evening, and with musicians, singers, and all. There was great diversity groups of all the nationalities taking part. It's wonderful to see that. Celebrating the coming of Christmas, it was so good to see, and served with mulled wine and mince pies afterwards. Sunday afternoon on the 8th of December, myself and my consul attended Ripley Church for the carol service of the Mayor and Mayoress of Amber Valley. Paul, who previously worked for Derbyshire Dales in the accounts department, is the present Mayor of Amber Valley. In January, I attended the Mayor of Chesterfield celebrations for Long Service Awards. Some very, very good long service awards were given out, and a special one for the long service chauffeur of the Mayor's car. He retired and he got a long service award. But main thing I want to tell you tonight is I'm very sorry that my chosen charity, the Derbyshire Children's Holiday Centre, that started in 1890s, will not be operating this year. But I hope that the charity will open again sometime in the future. I am at the moment looking at a charity that is close to my heart, the Children's Cancer Charity. Last year, a local Middleton lad, Riley, died of cancer at age 10. Only 6 weeks after Riley had switched on the Middleton Christmas lights, and he was a wonderful little boy, always smiling, always happy, and he had been fighting cancer for 5 years, and then he loved to be out in the countryside, and it's so sad that he passed away with this awful children's cancer. So I will be contacting the Children's Cancer and asking them to be my chosen charity, which I'm sure they will be welcome. I have 2 charity events coming up shortly in Worksworth Town Hall, the Country and Western Evening, with Nottingham and Derbyshire veteran country western singer Paul Hopkins. Everybody's invited to put in their check shirts and cowboy hats and come along and enjoy a lovely evening, because it was wonderful. A similar thing was done at Ilkeston Football Ground, and it's wonderful to see everybody enjoying themselves and enjoying the entertainment. So come along, it will be a great night, and please send information on tickets will be sent later. The burger menus and pies will also be available to order. Quickly moving on again. Sorry. Quickly moving on again. I have my civic service on the 6th of April, Sunday the 6th of April. It will be in St Mary's Church, Wordsworth, and afterwards the tea reception will be at Wellsprings Church, not far from St Mary's, just round the corner. It will be a different service. There will be choirs there singing, and it will be slightly different to the normal civic service. It will be open for everybody to come to, and we welcome anybody, if you're Christian or not a Christian, we welcome you to come to it. Also, if you let Deborah know, and ring Deborah, and I think she sent all the invitations out to all councillors, and if you would like to come along, please email or ring Deborah that you are available to come along. So I hope to see you all at the civic service. Another event I'm looking to at the end of my year of office will be a concert, also in Wellsprings, a concert of different choirs to to on a Saturday night. It will be with other entertainment. It will be a very lovely night, and I hope to see you all to that. So I'll send you the information on the 2 charity events. So thank you everyone for support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thack. In which case, can we now move on to item 7, which is to receive the minutes of the committee meetings that have taken place over the last part of the council cycle. Now, we have a series of meetings there. The Ernest Bailey Committee from the 5th of November, Planning Committee 12th of November, Community Environment 21st, Planning Committee again 27th, Council on the 28th of November, Governance and Resources 5th of December, Full Council on the 9th of December, Planning Committees of the 10th and 12th of December, Scrutiny of the 17th of December, Licensing and Appeals 19th of December, and Planning Committee again of the 14th of January. I'm seeking your permission to take them on block, to move them on block rather than vote separately. Yes, Councillor.
I was just doing that for you.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Do have a seconder for those minutes, please, which you've all received. Councillor Burfoot, thank you. All those in favour of taking those minutes, please. Any against? No. And any abstentions? Thank you very much. In which case we move then on to questions, item 8. Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Flitter, in response to queries from residents across the Derbyshire Dales District Council area, can the leader give an update from the Gypsy and Traveller Working Group and also give a date when planning will commence for the sites agreed at the extraordinary meeting of Full Council on December the 9th, 2024? Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Further to the decisions taken at the Council on 9th of December 2024, no further meetings of the Gypsy and Traveller Working Group have been convened, as their work is now largely complete. Council officers are now progressing a number of separate work streams to secure the implementation of the decisions taken at that meeting on the 9th of December. Applications for the planning permission will now be submitted at the earliest possible opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor Fitter. I do have a supplementary.
Yep.
Bearing in mind the strength of public opinion regarding the decision to hold the Wolds extraordinary meeting in private last week, to the dismay of myself and the residents of Matlock, will the leader give a firm assurance that all meetings to discuss this matter will be held in public, recorded on film, recorded votes shared, and full minutes taken that will also be shared? Thank you.
Councillor Flitter.
I'm not just too sure whether that's a legitimate question as a supplementary question to the one that's been asked, and I'll not answer that at this particular time.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Fitter. I'd endorse what Councillor Fitter says. Obviously, when reports are coming through to the Council, we have to look at whether those reports should be held in public or exempt, and we can't make that decision until we know when the reports are.
Okay. All right. Could we have our second question, please, which is Councillor G.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I think you're doing an excellent job, by the way, for the first session. Yeah, thank you. As the leader is aware, the Council at short notice called an extraordinary public full Council meeting to discuss the planning appeal, public inquiry, in relation to development proposals at Gritstone Road, Sandy Lane and Bent Lane, Matlock. The restricted agenda for this meeting was only published 2 days prior to the event which took place on 23rd of January 2025. I was unable to attend this meeting and gave my apologies. Following the meeting, I became aware that the main agenda item, number 6, had taken place with the exclusion of the public. Could the Council leader explain Why, as an elected member of this council, I haven't been furnished with the information provided to other council members in a private sitting? And does the council leader support this information and recording of voting which took place being restricted from the people of Matlock?
Councillor Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think this is a fair question. I think Councillor Hobson was trying to steal your thunder on this one. But the Council does not facilitate private sittings to members who are unable to attend meetings of the Council. That is a responsibility of the political group leader to ensure that members of a political group who are unable to attend meetings are appraised of decisions taken, and I am sure that Councillor Hobson will have provided you with such an update on this occasion. The agenda is an exempt item of business because of the reasons that were clearly identified and explained in the agenda papers. The exempt item of business, the minute of this item, is also exempt for the same reasons.
Go ahead.
Miss Birdwell advised us that none of us were to discuss what had happened in that meeting at all, or to discuss it anywhere. So I haven't discussed it with any of the members of my group who weren't there. Neither have I been on social media to discuss this. So I'd just like to clarify that. Thank you.
Grateful for that. Councillor G, do you want to come back at all?
Sorry, Mark, Yeah, I haven't been furnished with the information from any source. But my follow-up question is, does the council leader condone council members who were present at that meeting engaging in Facebook discussion on the details which took place in the secret excluded from public meeting? I mean, the way I look at it, if you're going to exclude the public and make the meeting secret, why would you talk about it all over Facebook in the preceding days following the meeting?
It's a fair question.
Thank you, Councillor G. It is a fair question, and it's one that I've been pondering myself, because there were legal and financial reasons why we're in the exempt part of the meeting. We only came to that meeting because, well, you can blame me for that, quite fairly and squarely, because an urgent decision was asked for by the barrister, and I thought that in fairness to the rest of this council, we came and discussed it in council on the appropriate date. And I got into a fair bit of trouble for that. From my own members especially, but I'm stubborn, and openness and fairness is what I'm all about. And it did actually occur to me, the same as it's occurred to you, that how in a private session of this council, where it was confidentiality all the way because of these legal reasons, why did a member, or why did people outside of this council know that we took a recorded vote? It's got me thinking that, are we all trustworthy in this way? And I certainly want to come to the bottom of that. So I agree with your sentiments, and we should be looking into it, Councillor G.
Okay. Thank you. That's questions dealt with. We've had an agreed change to the agenda items tonight then. I'm very grateful to the proposer of the motion that was put before you for that deferral. I've got agreement on that, haven't I? Yeah, thank you. In which case we now have a new item 9, which is the former item 19, which is the urgent item, First Homes Authority to sign legal documents.
Members, I don't intend to speak very long on this item. You've already heard from me as to why it's coming. Basically, it's to extend the delegation currently to the Director of Housing to include the Director of Customer and Corporate Services and the Chief Executive to sign anything legal in the legal documents in the conveyancing pack to allow first home purchasers to proceed. The original delegation was given by the Community Environment Committee on the 30th of July, and we're simply asking members to agree the extension of the delegation.
Thank you. Do we have a proposer to accept that? Councillor Dobbs. Oh, sorry. Councillor Hobson, sorry.
Through the chair to Ms Beardwell. It's just a question, just to clarify, it's only for the first homes purchase, it isn't for other additional things?
That's correct, Councillor Hobson. It's purely to extend that delegation for that single purpose.
Thank you.
Happy to propose the delegation as described by Barbara.
So that's Councillor Dobbs and Councillor Burfoot to second that. Okay. Do you have a wish to speak on that, Councillor Dobbs?
No.
Right, thank you. Councillor Burfoot? No, thank you. Okay. In which case we're into debate on this. Is there anyone who wishes to debate this matter? Stunned silence. Thank you. In which case can we move straight to the vote, please? All those in favour of accepting the recommendation, please show. I believe that's unanimous. None against? Oh, no. And any abstentions? No. Okay. That is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Could I just confirm that that's all three recommendations as well that were put forward? Or was it one? Oh, sorry. There was 3 items. Sorry.
Yes. Okay. So we now have the new item 10, which is the former item 18, which deals with Derbyshire Dales CVS. Paul, would you like to take the floor on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. As members are aware from Mr Maldon's presentation, the District Council and Derbyshire County Council have historically provided funding to a wide range of organisations to support the delivery of community services, and clearly one of the most significant organisations in the Derbyshire Dales is the Council for Voluntary Services. Derbyshire Dales CVS does receive grant funding from a number of different sources, including Derbyshire County Council, the Integrated Care Board, and indeed this District Council. As Mr Maldon has pointed out, the County Council have recently undertaken a review of the discretionary funding that they provide to these types of organisations, and they have resolved that that funding will cease with the end of this current financial year. So that significant funding which was previously available will no longer be available from the 1st of April. The District Council was approached by Mr Maldon to see whether any further support could be provided. We did reflect upon the valuable work that they do provide to our residents and communities, and therefore this report is seeking a one-off additional support payment of £25,000 in the financial year 25-26. There is a requirement that the Derbyshire Dales CVS do demonstrate to us at the end of the 25-26 financial year the work that they have undertaken to benefit our communities, and at this moment in time there is no further commitment beyond our existing commitments in that respect. So happy to take any further questions, Chair.
So we have questions from Councillor Hobson.
Thank you. I'm happy to move this. It's a comment. Thank you, Paul, for the report, and thank you for Neil coming to speak. I've worked with Neil over many years with projects throughout the Derbyshire Dales. The CVS do an absolutely sterling job, and I'd only mentioned to Neil earlier on a member of his staff who's helping with the project in my ward, and they have enormous expertise, and I wish you well, Neil. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to clarify my understanding of this. So it's a supplementary budget of £25,000 in addition to the amount that we already provide of 31,161. Is that correct? So
that is correct, Chair. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. That's fine.
Thank you.
I note actually also that it's quite a significant proportion of what Derbyshire County Council was providing.
Okay. Councillor Burfoot.
I'm happy to second Councillor Hobson's proposal, or to move this recommendation or recommendations.
Okay, we do have further questions,
Right,
so
okay.
I think.
Because it was moved, I thought it better be seconded.
So I believe, is it Councillor Maelstrom? No, okay. Next door, Councillor Buckler.
I'm intrigued to know if there are other organisations where this has happened for Derbyshire County Council. So, you know, by agreeing this one, are we? How many other organisations could be affected and, you know, come to us so that we've got items in future? I don't have a problem with it. I'd just quite like to know the sort of scope of the issue.
Yes, thank you, Chair. There are other organisations that do operate in the Derbyshire Dales that will be impacted by the County Council's decision. However, no other organisation apart from Derbyshire Dales CVS has approached us to engage in any dialogue in terms of when any further support could be made available. So if there were other organisations that were to approach this council, then they would go through a similar process of discussion and evaluation.
All right, so do we have a proposer then? Councillor Hobson. And a seconder?
I'll second it, yes.
Councillor Burfoot, thank you.
Can I speak as well then?
You can, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, well, Sue was intending to propose this motion because she's had quite a lot to do with CVS and so on, especially as a county councillor. She's unwell today, unfortunately, so I'll read out what she was intending to say. The Conservative County Council made the decision to cease all existing discretionary grant funding after the 31st of March this year. The effect on Derbyshire Dales Council for Voluntary Service of these cuts is huge. I think we would all agree that DDCVS has a pivotal and important role in supporting voluntary and community groups, and their work is far-ranging. I'd also like to echo what Councillor Hobson said in appreciation of Neil Mulden's efforts over many years. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hobson, I was remiss there. I didn't ask if you wanted to say anything. No. All right, thank you. In which case, we're into debate on this. Do I have anyone who wishes to enter debate? Yes.
I fully support this motion, and I think many of us are extremely frustrated because what we've been seeing for some time now is the collapse of decency. We're looking at very basic, decent services that, if you like, you know, should not be in this position. So I do fully support us as a council trying to enable something to help secure what the gentleman came and addressed us tonight, and we all do sincerely wish you well, but it is heartbreaking in terms of how it is affecting now these cuts. You know, the county council in one sense are reaping what, you know, your own national government rules and all the rest of it. When you've played it by the book, this is the end result, that we're looking at care facilities and the infrastructure now not being adequately funded.
Do we have anybody else? Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, I just want to, I mean, we all know CVS, we all know Neil, and we all know the good things that are happening throughout our community of the Derbyshire Dales because of the Council of Voluntary Services. But not a lot of people realise that they also take a strain off this council in the work they do on our behalf as our agents for many things. And I think that should be applauded. And by supporting this motion, we're also supporting the continuation of many services that we would have to take on anyway. So thank you very much for Neil, and I hope to support this.
No further contributions on that. In which case, could we move to the vote then, please? Do we have a proposer? Councillor Bull. Sorry. Right, okay. Move straight to the vote then. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. In which case we can move on to the next item, which, if you recall, is item 11, former item 10. So this is the referred item, fraud prosecution policy for the council tax. Karen.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a fairly simple item. It's asking Council to approve the officer delegations that are necessary to implement the fraud prosecution policy for council tax support. That policy was approved by the Governance and Resources Committee in December, but it's necessary to seek council approval for the delegation to officers.
Thank you. Do we have any questions to Karen on this report?
Could I propose, please?
Yes,
the recommendations. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you. In which case, are there any questions? No. Okay. Councillor Wilton, would you like to speak on this?
No, thanks. No, it's an excellent piece of work. Thank you, Karen. And it just updates our policies, that's all.
All right. In which case, if there's nobody who wants to speak in debate on this, can we again move straight to the vote, please? Who's in favour? Looks unanimous to me again. Is this for
all 7 recommendations?
So we're carrying all 7 recommendations in one go here, just as a reminder.
I was proposing all recommendations, yes.
Yeah, that's clarified. Yeah. Thank you. So we've had everyone in favour, I believe, nobody against. No. And no abstentions. Therefore, that is carried. Thank you very much. We then move on to item 12, which is the former 11, car park review. So that's Vicky Winfield, please. Sorry. Oh, my apologies. I'm getting mixed up with my own numbers. The reason for this is I've got 2 sets of agenda in front of me, so you have to bear with me. One of them has got the new numbers on and one of them doesn't. But yes, thank you. I'm much indebted. We are indeed on the capital programme. Sorry, council tax premiums. Yeah. Over to Karen. We'll get there in a minute.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is asking members to approve some local exceptions to the council tax premiums and also changes to the council's policy for discretionary council tax discounts. So a bit of background first. We've had a council tax premium for long-term empty homes since 2019-20. And depending on the length of time those homes have been empty, people are charged an extra 100%, 200% or 300%. Last February, members approved in principle that you would charge a 100% premium on second homes. And as part of that report, we said that we would review exceptions and discounts to those premiums. We were waiting at the time for the outcome of government consultation. That took rather a long time to arrive, and we eventually got the results of that and the new statutory exceptions in October, and we had to wait till November to get the guidance. So the report is based on that. So the first part of the report, section 1, gives you some background information to show you how the number of second homes, holiday lets and empty homes has changed over the period that we've been monitoring it since January 2024. And there hasn't been a great deal of movement. We're seeing some movement from holiday lets to second homes, but we think a lot of that relates to the valuation office agencies' new arrangements to classify holiday lets. They're now much more stringent about the classification of holiday lets. If it doesn't meet specific criteria, it then becomes a second home under council tax. So we think that explains a lot of the movement. The next part of the report sets out the statutory exceptions. So these were the ones that were issued by the government in October, and you can see that they relate to things like dwellings that are for sale, unoccupied dwellings undergoing probate, and so on. So if these properties met the circumstances for a second homes premium or an empty homes premium, then those shown in Table 3 would not actually be charged the premium. So that's what the exception means. It means they won't be charged the premium. So those are the statutory ones, and they're set out in more detail in Appendix 1. Once officers had reviewed those, we then began to wonder whether we needed some local exceptions to address any particular issues that had come up. We reflected on the experience we'd had with the empty homes premium and issues that had emerged from that. And we also reflected from the outcome of letters that we'd sent to all council tax second homeowners after council had taken the decision to introduce the second homes premium. And the results of that are shown in Table 4. You can see the types of themes that emerged, and the officer group assessed each of those and decided whether a local premium should apply. The result of that exercise was that officers are recommending 3 different types of local exception. The first one is for a very specific case of job-related dwellings for the armed forces personnel. So there is a statutory exception for armed forces. People in the armed forces obviously have to work on base or abroad, and they'll often maintain a residence in their own local neighbourhood. The statutory exemption means that the home in Derbyshire Dales would be exempt from the council tax premium if the person in the military was actually in armed forces provided accommodation. So in the past we had an example of somebody who was in the armed forces but had chosen not to stay on armed forces accommodation. He wanted his family to live off base, and we felt that this would be something that we would probably want to apply a local exception for, so that if somebody was in the armed forces but didn't live on base, we felt that since you've approved an armed forces covenant, you would probably want to extend this exception and have a local exception in those circumstances. I don't expect there to be many. I can only remember one case in the last 10 years, but I just wanted to make sure that we covered it if it came up again. The second proposed local exception is for age-designated properties. Some members might recall that we currently have part of our Section 13A discretionary discounts policy to look at this issue. Excuse me. So an age-designated property is a specific type of property that's intended only to be occupied by people of a certain age, usually elderly people. And so it's often difficult to sell those properties should the person pass away or move into a care home. And we've had examples that are mentioned in the report of properties that have taken years to buy. So under our current empty homes premium, people had to apply for a discretionary discount to offset that. What we're proposing now is that we have an exception to the council tax, so that people, where a property is up for sale and it's an age-designated property, it will receive the statutory exemption for 1 year. But what we're proposing is that we have a local exception to give them a second year, so that they have 2 years to sell those properties. The third type of local exception that we're proposing comes from the work that the Empty Homes Officer has done and the conversations he's had with people that have been charged the empty homes premium. We're proposing a local exception for properties that are listed or in a conservation area. These are properties that often take a long time to renovate, some take years. And you can see from the criteria that's set out in paragraph 2.6 that we've put some quite stringent criteria down. There must be delays that are not the responsibility of the owner. So we're often told that there are planning delays and so on. That things are uncovered that weren't expected. So one of the criteria is that they have to have investigated delisting for council tax. What that means is if a property is uninhabitable, if it's really a wreck, then the Valuation Office Agency will agree to delist it, which means that council tax isn't charged at all. So we'll often ask people to do that rather than have to apply a discount. So that's the third type of local exception that we're proposing for certain listed properties. That one, that would only apply to the empty homes premium. The other two would be for the empty homes premium and the second homes premium. The next part of the report talks about changes to the policy for the council tax discretionary discounts. That's mostly necessary because we've removed the reference in the discretionary discounts policy, the reference to the age designated properties, because that's now covered by a statutory and local exception. And the updated policy is shown in Appendix 3. Paragraph 2.15 of the report says that a verbal update will be given at the meeting in relation to the discussions with the County Council. So we asked the County Council if, since they were going to receive this windfall of £1.4 million a year, if they would either give us some of it back to invest in housing, or if they'd replace the second homes grant of about £300,000 that they'd withdrawn earlier this year. And Paul Wilson and I had a meeting with the Council's Section 151 officer just before Christmas. So the reply that I received from the County Council Section 151 officer said, I've consulted with others within the County Council about your request as set out in your email and letter dated 19th December. I can confirm that the County Council is not in a position to pay the District Council an element of the extra precept the county will receive from the introduction of the second homes premium. Also, the County Council is unable to reverse the decision to discontinue the second homes grant. So they're not able to give us any of it back. In terms of the costs of the local discounts and the changes to the premium, I'll start again. In terms of the costs of the exceptions to the premium, the local ones that we're proposing, I think these will be minimal. We're not expecting a great deal of applications for them. In the estimation that we've done of the council tax income for next year, we've estimated 10% of the premiums would be exceptions, but the vast majority of those would be the statutory exceptions where properties are for sale, undergoing probate, etc. And there's the changes to the discretionary discounts should actually result in a small saving to the council because the council stands the full cost of discretionary discounts. Those will now be local exceptions or statutory discounts, and the cost of that is shared with the other preceptors. So there'll be a small saving. Thank you.
Do we have questions to Karen on this? Yes, Councillor Whitehead.
Just a little bit on the kind of, why do we have to share it with partners at all? Is that statutory, or is that a decision we've made?
No, it's statutory under council tax regulations. So all council tax income is shared pro rata to the precepts that we and the other organisations apply. The only layer that doesn't benefit are the parish councils. This income's shared between us, the county, the fire and the police.
And just to follow up, so I'm just surprised that kind of do we charge a fee to our partners for collecting council tax?
No. Again,
shouldn't we?
Under council tax regulations, it's our responsibility to collect.
Councillor G.
Yeah, if I could just ask Karen, could you just clarify to us, the members, that what is there an expected additional net income to the council of instigating this policy? That's to Derbyshire Dales District Council. So what I'm trying to say is the actual number of second homes that are double council taxed and the amount of money we receive from that, is there an expected amount? And could I ask that over the first year from April, are we going to make sure that that is accurately recorded of all this work that involved in instigating this policy, what we're likely to get back in monetary terms?
So,
and I think there was one. I'll let you answer that first.
So part 7 of the report sets out the financial implications. So it says in there that we're expecting to get 2.3 million next year from
to this council.
No, so we'll collect 2.3 million. This council should receive around £280,000.
£280,000.
So that will be classified as our share of the council tax.
Yeah.
income.
So because I'll be hopefully asking in a year's time what that figure is after we've because I welcome all these exceptions, but I'll come up with that when we go to debate on this. Thank you.
Councillor Whitehead.
I just had one other thought, really, Karen, a question. So the recommendation is to accept this, is it? What if we don't? What if we decide that we don't put it in? Because we seem to be the smallest gainer from this. But yeah, it's our proposal. So I would say to Derbyshire County Council, we were going to do it, but you know what? Because you're not chipping back in, we ain't going to bother at all. So I'll be voting against.
Yes, okay, yes.
With all due respect, this report is asking you to approve exceptions to the premium. The debate about whether you actually charge the premium is probably one that you need to have on the 3rd of March when you set the council tax.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if that was a question or a statement, but yes, Councillor Hughes. Yeah.
Chair, yes, it's all very well us getting income out of this, but what is the purpose of second homes premium and the empty homes premium? Isn't it to try and reduce the number of empty homes and second homes, so we have more homes available for our residents and who want to live here permanently?
Yes, that was the reason why we proposed the report that we did last February. The reason why we're charging these local exceptions is because we need to take a balanced approach, and there are sometimes circumstances where people are trying their best to renovate a property, and us charging them. Some of the premiums can be £6,000-7,000 or more, so us charging them that can actually detract from their ability to get on with the work. So that's why we've tried to tailor that specific local exception for that circumstance.
Thank you. And Karen, the reason you put the table in showing the numbers of second homes and empty homes, is that because that is our principal purpose in introducing this, is to and you are therefore capturing the KPIs necessary to determine whether the policy is successful or not. That's a question.
That's right. When we brought the report last year, we said that we would monitor the numbers.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
I believe Councillor Maelstrom has a question.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very much in favour of the second home and empty home premiums, and these exceptions all seem reasonable as well. The only query I had was in relation to the one for houses that are stuck in probate, which is limited to a year. I've heard anecdotally from residents that at the moment properties are being stuck in probate for considerably longer than the government's sort of 16-week guideline. So, you know, it can be, I mean, my neighbour's mother, her house has been in probate for 13 months. I mean, that might be down to the solicitors, who knows. But if it might not necessarily be possible to even get a house on the market within a year of death, let alone sell it at a reduced price. So if people can't actually sell, is there any way they can sort of apply for further relief if they are genuinely prevented from selling?
We do have the policy in Appendix 3, that's the discretionary council tax discounts. So if they were in hardship, then they could apply under that policy to either defer the payment until the property is sold, or to receive a discount under that. And I believe that is often that deferral is what the council tax team will arrange. So it's their practice to, if somebody tells them that they're waiting for probate but it's not yet been awarded, they will generally suspend recovery and then try to recover that debt on the sale of the property.
Thank you. And also just to follow up, do you know if, and you might not know this, but do we have any stats on how long it's taken to get property through probate?
No, I'm not aware that we collect that data.
Okay. If there's no further questions, do we have a... Sorry, we do? Yes?
Just a question, a follow-on question about the probate. Am I right, Karen, in saying the problems with probate have arisen very recently, and it is in terms with the last government removing probate from local officers, helping residents sort out probate, and having a national computerised system, which is now failing people? If people get one piece of their administrative paperwork wrong, they then have to go back to the bottom of the pile and start the whole process again. And some people, it's now taking years rather than months, as it has done previously, all to do with computerisation and nationalisation of a national scheme for getting probate through, which is a bit of a disaster at the moment. And I think, I don't know whether it is possible that we could carefully monitor the probate issues and maybe at some point in the future extend this to 2 years or something. Just a thought.
I mean, if members were so desired, you could actually do that now and add a fourth local exception to give an additional 12 months to unoccupied dwellings undergoing probate. You could add that now, tonight, if you wanted to.
Councillor Buttle, I think, did you have a question?
Well, I was going to move this, but I'm quite interested to see whether or not Marilyn's interested in extending the probate for a second possible year upon application. We had actually run through most of this in GNR, and the examination that we've come to here is pretty much identical to the one we had before. It all seems to make very much sense, so if Marilyn's not interested, I shall move it, and if she is, I shall not.
I think I would like to move an amendment to extend the clause, the condition about probate, where a family is experiencing difficulties with the new computerised system, that we extend it to 2 years.
come back to that, but Councillor G.
One other question that's come to mind. With this exception that if a property is in a conservation area, it qualifies for the exception. Do we have any idea how many of these second homes that are listed in the numbers that are likely to qualify to be charged double council tax fall inside conservation areas?
So a lot will fall inside conservation areas, but that isn't the only criteria. If you look at the recommendation and the paragraph 2.6, you can see that it also must meet all the other criteria about this, that it must be long-term empty, the owner must have investigated delisting, it must be going to be a permanent residence, and where substantial home improvements are planned or being undertaken, any delay is through no fault of the homeowner.
Yeah.
So it must meet all of those. Now, I asked the empty homes officer how many he thought there would be, and he said around 10 a year.
10 that fall into that. It's just that I've heard Rob explain, you know, in our meetings before, when you write things into a paper like this, that how the public will pick up on them, and when they come and try and make their argument, if it's in black and white that it talks about conservation area, it's going to create quite a lot of discussion with people who are trying to become an exception. Is that likely to put overly stress on officers in dealing with that situation?
That was one of the concerns that I had, and that's why if you look at the recommendation, it actually says that those particular exceptions have to be assessed by the housing department, because that was a suggestion that came from them, and I didn't want to put too much pressure on the revenues team, who wouldn't have the knowledge all the time to deal with those applications.
Thank you.
All right. So there are no further questions, but I believe we have a proposal for an amendment.
Can we just get the wording of the amendment?
Yes. Yes. So, Karen, are you able to assist us with the wording of the amendment there to, I believe, to extend the exemption for houses in probate up to 2 years? Is that right?
Yes. I'm just looking for the other recommendation. So, it's a bit like recommendation 3. So it could say that, in effect, with effect from 1st of April 2025, the Council determines to adopt a 100% local exception in respect of a council tax premium relating to a property awaiting probate, for a further 5. So basically, it would be recommendation 3, but removing the words age designated and replacing them with a property undergoing probate. So let's have a look at the wording in the statutory exception. I think Councillor Franks mentioned about problems with the computer system. I'd be a bit concerned about that, because it's going to be difficult for officers to verify that that's the reason for the delay in probate.
It's to do with the way the new national system operates. It's not working as well as the original local system where people could get advice. If you submit one item wrong, your application has to start the process all over again going through. You can't slot in that piece of paper and then continue where you left off. Hopefully the governments are trying to sort it out, but it's caused no end of problems for some people who don't get it right first time. It's taken some people 2-3 years to sort out probate. Yeah. So I don't know how we could word it, but it's whether a straight extension or just an extension for people who
That would be
That's having
my
difficulties.
recommendation, that we would have it the same as recommendation 3,
Yeah.
but remove age designated property and replace that by property undergoing probate.
Okay.
Then it would give them another 12 months.
Okay, we have some further questions, I believe, from Councillor Linthwaite.
It was just an observation, really, in terms of, does it really matter why the probate's gone on more than 12 months? Can we just say, you know, for up to 2 years, or, you know, whatever? You don't need to say because of this or that or the other.
And Councillor Maelstrom.
Well, along that line, I was just going to suggest that we could have an exception where people can demonstrate that they have applied for probate within 6 months of the date of death, but they haven't yet got it by the end of the 12 months. That
would work.
That means people still have an incentive to crack on with it, but they're not penalised if they're stuck in the system.
So if we could add, if probate's been applied for but not received.
Can I just clarify? I'm looking at the table, Appendix 1, which refers to probate. And if I'm reading it correctly, and that may not be correct, it seems to suggest that there is an exemption until probate is granted. So that we're trying to address a problem that doesn't exist. If you read the Office of Comments in that table, it allows for an infinite time period for probate to be granted.
So
it's Appendix 1, statutory exceptions.
It's
to council
page
tax premiums.
262.
And it says it is exempt from council tax for as long as it remains unoccupied and until probate is granted. Which I think means that when probate is granted.
Very well spotted. Thank you. So does this mean we don't actually need an amendment? Excellent. All right. In which case, perhaps we could move on to have a proposer. Yes, Councillor Buttle, thank you. And a second. Councillor Wilton. Okay. In which case, we're now moving into debate. Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. Karen, could you... thank you very much for your report, and obviously a lot of hard work goes into this. I was interested in the discretionary council tax relief for significant flooding events. You know, where my ward is, you know, I've got Baslow, Beeley, Roseley, which have all suffered significant, and I know other areas have as well. So I think that's good that that's recognised. The other point I'd like to make, I do remember when we were talking about the second home premium, we did say we couldn't count our chickens before they were hatched because we couldn't rely that the county council would give us that money. So I think council were aware of that. Thank you.
Do we have anybody else who wishes to speak? Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Chair. Karen. Yeah, it's just nice to see on the exemptions that the armed forces are recognised with this, as we are signed up to the Armed Forces Covenant as a council. So it's just nice that that is included, and I'm sure it'll be much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor G.
Yeah, just quickly, I'd like to remind all the members that I think I am a member who voted against this policy being instigated in the first place because I didn't like it. I still don't like it. I definitely like the exceptions, but I don't think it's a sensible way of meeting housing need. I think we have local plans for that. We have NPPFs, and we've got all these developments going on. If we provide all those houses in the new NPPF targets, you won't need to be stealing second homes off good taxpayers who don't deserve to have their lives interrupted by this policy.
Okay. Right, so we have a proposer in the form of Councillor Buttle. Do you wish to speak on this at all, Councillor?
No, I'm happy with it, thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Wilton.
No, I'm fine. I'm happy with it as well. Thank you. Thank you, Karen, for the work.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad we've cleared all that up. I think we move now to the vote. So could we have all those showing in favour, please, of all recommendations?
It's 1 to 7.
1 to 7. And all those against? Are there any abstentions? I believe again that's unanimous. Thank you, members. We now move on to, we're back on our numbering system again now, you'll be pleased to know. We're back on to item 13. Karen, over to you again, please.
Thank you again. So this report is a capital programme update. The first part of the report outlines expenditure to 31st of December against the programme that you approved in November. And you can see that it's now expected to be £3.7 million less than we thought in November. Details are given in Appendix A, where you can see the change for each project. Of that £3.7 million, £1.8 million has been reprofiled into 2025-26 as a result of delays and slippage. Table 3 of the report shows that there are 13 new projects for inclusion and approval this time. 11 of those were approved by the Community and Environment Committee in January, as required under financial regulations. And the other 2 have emerged since that meeting. So the first one was to do with electric vehicle charging points. We were offered a grant at the Bakewell ABC to install an electric vehicle charging point, and we had to reply quite quickly as to whether we wished to accept that grant or not. So I approved that under delegated authority, but as required, I'm reporting it to Council now. If we hadn't have responded quickly, we would have missed out on the grant. The second one was approved at last week's meeting of the the meeting on 27th of January about the Public Conveniences Review. One of the recommendations resulted in capital expenditure of £12,500. So those are the 13 new bids that are recommended to be added to the programme, and they add up to just over £1.5 million. The overall changes to the capital programme result in a new total of £33,274,820. The proposed financing is shown in the table 6. It's mostly from reserves, capital receipts, contributions and grants. There's no additional borrowing. The results of that financing can be seen in Appendix B, where you can see the balances that remain in capital reserves. They add up to around £500,000 for future projects, but there's also a committed balance of an uncommitted balance of just under £700,000 in the Corporate Plan Priority Reserve, which can be used for revenue or capital spending. So I'm asking you to approve the 6 recommendations that are set out on page 289 of the agenda pack.
Chair, a point of order. We have electronic copies of these documents, and we can display them on our tablets, but we can't read them on our tablets because they're too small. But we can't print them off on our home printers because our tablets don't allow us to print off on our home computers. I feel, and the latest agenda item that came on to our computers today, late, I couldn't open it on my tablet. It wouldn't open at all. I really think that we need to do something about our IT to make sure that the documents that we get given can be read easily before we come to committee. So I can't read any of the appendices in this document.
All right. Thank you. I think we all share great sympathy with that. It's an issue which I hope we can address before future meetings. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you. So I have got a question, but I will just say David's point is absolutely spot on. The IT support to us, I don't know what it's like for officers, but the experience as a councillor, it's poor. It's like we're not treated as adults, not even allowed to have our own password. I work for several other organisations. I'm allowed to log into my email on my phone. I work for the NHS. I can log in on my own personal phone. I can log in my laptop. I can log in on my computer at home. I'm dealing with highly sensitive information every day. I'm treated like an adult. But the way we're treated like as councillors in this authority, when it comes to IT, is absolutely appalling. And I've been saying this since I got elected, 2 years ago. I know we're just about to get upgrading the projectors, but we've got to do something about giving us proper access so we can read our emails when we want to read them on the devices we want to read them. It's an absolute nonsense. So sorry, I'll go off my high horse. So my question, Karen, and I don't think you'll be surprised, Project 652. Now, a year ago, we had the same conversation, and we renamed this line to Matlock Bath Lovers Walk, because I think it was called Matlock Bath Lovers Walk Shelter. There was a commitment that we made in that meeting that we wouldn't commit to delivering the folly of rebuilding some ridiculous shelter. But I'm just reading here, the design is being prepared for planning application. Could you explain that to me, please?
I'm sorry, I've not got that depth of knowledge on that particular project.
So I'm going to make a recommendation in terms of to accept all your recommendations, except that be removed from the report, that line about Project 652, until I'm given the clarity, and I hope someone will support me in doing that.
That sounds like it's a proposal. Do we have anyone wishing to second that? Councillor Gretorix.
Councillor Whitehead's proposal.
Okay. Councillor Hobson.
While we're on the various proposals, when we were at the C&E, a lot of cross-party people were not happy with the audio-visual recommendation. Paul explained that it needs replacing and it will be portable, and we accepted it and it went through. But the more I've thought about it, and I've actually seen emails to all councillors from other members who were not at that meeting querying why we were doing it, my point I want to make is in 2 years' time, it will just be redundant anyway if we go to devolution. And also, I took the opportunity to email the county council, because obviously we had the meeting in the chamber up there, and they do have facilities for hybrid meetings up there. They would let it, I mean, it's only up the road, it's not like we're expected to go somewhere else, so they would have hybrid committee room 1 that can have different layouts. It holds 28 boardroom style and up to 80 theatre style. And again, we don't charge at the moment for it, but they are looking to charge for the future. It just seems a more cost-effective way for this council. If we're looking at these things in depth, why would we be spending all that money? Thank you.
Okay, it's not a question, it's a statement, isn't it? Councillor G.
Yeah, I'd like to accept Councillor Whitehead's recommendation to remove the funding for this thing in Matlock Bath. But could we add a line in to have the tennis courts resurfaced in Bakewell, please, in the recreation ground, in place of it?
I'm not sure this is quite the occasion to be modifying the capital programme in significant ways, but thank you for that suggestion. We've got a motion, haven't we? Oh, yes.
Just a point of clarification. I remember the example you're talking about, Nick, and I moved the motion, or moved the point that we should change the funding for the replacement of the shelter to something else in Matlock Bath. I can't remember what it was now, and I thought it was agreed. And this project here does have a different name. It's not got Shelter Rebuild or whatever was the name of the previous project.
That's the name I proposed last year, Bob, and that's what they
that was the name in the report, Shelter Rebuild. A year ago, and that's changed now to this name here. So, yes, so therefore the funding is not for that project.
Well, Chair, I can confirm the proposal is not to rebuild that shelter in line with the decision that Council made last time the capital programme was reviewed. This is a different project. The actual detail that's involved, I don't have that this evening either, but it's entirely for Council to determine whether you want to defer this and take it out of this current programme and incorporate it at a later date, but it will probably impact on the programme of works that is clearly currently in train. But if Councillor Whitehead is not aware of that programme and not comfortable with it, then Council are free to take it out of this report.
So, I mean, I appreciate that little bit of added clarity, so that's helpful. But I'm surprised that as the ward member, no one's bothered to come and tell me what the plans are for... So I've had really great conversations with Ash Watts about what we'd like to do, but he's not involved in the capital programme. So I'm not aware Mike's come and spoke to me kind of about any proposals. So you leave me in an awkward position because I don't want to sort of do my community in if we've got some plan. But I'd really like to know what that plan is so I can maybe share it with my community, because maybe they'd like to have a bit of a say in what we're doing. Because if I don't know, I'm guessing they don't know either. So, thank you.
Councillor Butcher.
Can I just propose, Nick, that you leave it in and go and talk to whoever it is, Ashley or Rob, and if you are still upset about it, then you can raise it, and I'm sure we can get that amended.
Okay. I'm grateful again for your lenience on this one, thank you. It sounds like we've avoided having an amendment there, but I have Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, I just wanted to make the point, Chair, that these things aren't going to happen tomorrow, and there's time and room for discussion. And I was upset about the shelter. That brings back many a memory in my youth, and I don't mind admitting it. But there again, if it's something that, if this scheme is for something within Lovers Walk itself, which is a lovely place to go and walk, providing the dogs haven't been around, I don't think we should take it out at this present time, but it's not got to be progressed until Councillor Whitehead is sure of what's happening and is in agreement. If at the time that he decides no, that Matlock Bath doesn't want that scheme, then it can be pulled at a later date.
Thank you. Councillor Nash.
I'm not sure if Councillor Hobson was making a proposal to take the AV out. I think given the timescales of potentially the council's survival, then it might be something we want to think about and revisit. And I would welcome if the county council would let us use their facilities for free, given the fact we've just given them £1.2 million.
Okay. Thank you, members. Councillor Wilson.
One of the things about the audiovisual, I know it's ring fenced for CapEx in here, but could we change that at a later date, potentially, Karen? If we do change how we're going to use it, because obviously conscious it'll be changing from a CapEx item to an OpEx item at a later, but it's ring fenced here.
Well, the funding, how were they funding it? IT reserve. So the funding could be used for either purpose. My officers have advised me that it would qualify as capital expenditure at the moment because it works to the buildings and it results in assets.
My point being, if we change how we do it, as Councillor Hobson suggests, if we wanted to rent a space or something, we change the nature of the spend.
Oh, sorry, yes, we could do. If we were renting space, we could draw that down from the reserve as well.
Okay, so if we had the 139, we could use it for either then, couldn't we?
Councillor Dobbs.
Just to expand on that, so there is a sum here at the moment as a capital expenditure. We've established that there could be some flexibility. So there could be some flexibility as to exactly what is purchased for that sum. And I think that would be useful to the people the officers who are charged with going in that direction. Would that be true?
Technically, we would need to take it out of the capital programme, or take some of it out of the capital programme and move it into the revenue budget, because we have to account for them differently. But we could accommodate it because we're drawing it down from a reserve that can be used for either.
I was really thinking in terms of flexibility as what officers in conversations with stakeholders regard as the most effective way forward to improve what we use. We are the end users in many ways of what we're talking about here. To take up Councillor Hobson's point, some flexibility would be possible. Is that right?
I believe so.
Paul would like to make an observation.
Yes, Chair, thank you. I mean, just a brief point, really. Obviously, this is a significant investment which Council is being asked to consider, but we mustn't lose sight of the fact that the microphones in front of you are starting to fail. The projectors also incur a significant annual maintenance cost, and irrespective of what happens to the future of this council over the next few years, we do have to operate for the next 2 to 3 years. And I had a request today for a hybrid briefing on Monday that we are currently arranging, and we don't have the facilities. So members need to understand the impact that it will have upon our operations, on your ability to conduct business affairs. And yes, it is a significant investment, but it is something which this council will need to consider, and if that investment is made, it would not be lost investment, because this is entirely portable equipment that we'll be purchasing.
Councillor Ripton, did you have a question? No? Okay. Councillor Burfoot.
But Paul Wilson has just answered my question to some extent, but I think he's quite right. We don't want to be having our meetings of full council at the county council members' room, do we? Or not the members' room, the council chamber. It's a very depressing room, as probably councillor. Sorry? What for full council? Well, yeah. Well, if it was that, would we better accommodate everybody who comes to as members of the public to meetings, for instance? I think it needs to be considered far more detailed before we can make a commitment trying to take this out. I think we need to leave it in and then have further discussions about how we can best forward this or progress this facility. If it's an improvement that's needed, then we could spend it on that, or we could meet at County Hall in the members' room, any members' facility or committee rooms. We've got plenty of rooms there, as we know from past experience. So I think it'd be a useful sum of money to retain in the capital budget, I think.
Okay. Councillor Wayne.
Thank you. Karen, I'm going to bring up the Bradbourne sewer. And I'm just a bit, I think I asked this before, but £58,000, and basically, why are we getting involved in sewers? Is it not something Severn Trent or Derbyshire County Council should be doing? Are you aware of that, or please? Thank you.
I believe that there are several small sewers that remain our responsibility. I don't know if this is one of them, but some of them relate from the housing stock transfer, where we chose for whatever reason or had to retain the sewers. So I think there's about 8 of them, but I don't know much more than that.
Do we ever think about, seeking them to be adopted? Is that an option? So we pass that responsibility on to the proper authorities, if you know what I mean.
I would have to check that with Mike Goldsworthy, but I assume that he would have considered that, but I can ask him if it's possible.
That's very kind. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Further to Councillor Dobbs's point, we're putting forward an amount in the capital budget for the audiovisual equipment. We don't have to spend all of that money, and we don't have to spend it as revenue. Capital, we can spend it as revenue. I think that I've heard several proposals for modifying the equipment or renovating the equipment, which might result in a lower spend than £139,000. And perhaps all we need to do at this stage is request that officers consider a variety of different ways in which we can enhance our audiovisual experience and leave it at that. Presumably this will come back to this committee or the GNR or for once a decision, once a way forward with the audiovisual equipment has been determined by officers, and it will be at that time that we spend the money rather than now when all we're doing is putting forward a budget. Would that be correct, Karen?
I don't know if Paul Wilson can answer that better than I could.
A lot of that work has been done already in terms of the assessments of the different options that exist. Clearly members have different options that they want us to pursue. We could have a look at that. We was working on the basis that there was a time critical element to this. So we have already started to engage with various suppliers to understand what the cost implications are. So we would effectively put a halt to the project, and members would be free to review it at a later date, but that's entirely within your gift. We was working on the basis that the legislation would change in terms of our ability to hold hybrid meetings should the council want to do them, but also the pressing need to have hybrid facilities for general operational purposes in this building, because we only have one very small room, as you're aware, which allows us to operate on that basis. So we would put a halt to the project as it currently stands if members wanted to revisit the whole technology issue, but we would need some guidance because we've done quite a lot of work on this already.
Councillor Nash.
Thanks for that clarification, Paul. That's really helpful. I hadn't picked up on the fact that we might be able to move to hybrid council meetings, because if we can, that puts a completely different aspect on it, because I know a lot of us that live a long way away would really appreciate being able to take some of these meetings from home.
And Chair, that was one of the driving forces for putting this project on a bit of a fast track, to be honest, because the government has undertaken a consultation, and whilst the outcome of that consultation is yet to be revealed, the indications are that they will change the legislation such that, should this council wish, it could hold hybrid meetings, which would include hybrid opportunities for members of the public. Instead of coming and sitting at the meeting for 2 and 3 hours, they could just sit in their home and participate. So that was one of the other reasons, because we were expecting the legislation to change fairly quickly, and that may still happen. But should it happen, we have no ability to take advantage of it, either for you as members, for our residents, for our general operational purposes. So that's why we was pushing forward at some pace with this.
Councillor Linthwaite.
This is an opinion, but I will formulate it as a question. I can completely understand why members are concerned about such a large amount of money being put to one side for something that we may only be using for 2 or 3 years. However, does it not rather smack of your domestic boiler dying 6 months before you decide to put your house up for sale? You know, it's just one of those things, and you have to suck it up, basically.
Okay, we've had lots of questions there, but we're back to the proposals as they are in front of us. Do we have a proposer, please? Councillor Burfoot.
Yes, I'd like to move the recommendations 1 to 6.
Okay.
And also support Councillor Hughes in his pleading to our IT department to improve the presentation of reports of this kind, because I think we all find it difficult reading some of the details, and people have picked out details in their own wards probably tonight, and I could do the same. I mean, there's numerous. I could go through all the schemes that are in this report, some of which I know about, and some of which have been to C&E committee as well over the past few months, if not longer. And some of them have been, even some have been carried out already, as Hawley's Park resin bounded paths, for instance. And so there was quite an assortment of schemes, from the IT equipment and the audiovisual equipment and so on, to practical, tangible schemes on the ground, which our residents will certainly probably approve of more than what happens in this building. So anyway, I'd like to move the recommendations 1 to 6 for the capital programme update, and hope it's voted through. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking for a second. Councillor Linthwaite, do you wish to speak on this at all? Okay. So we are into debate. Councillor Buttle.
Just a point of information. Being able to download your email to your phone is called Bring Your Own Device.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, I just want to support this, Chair. I think there's been one or two comments about IT, I think which are a little unfair. Our IT staff are very good. I know that because I call them in regularly. But the fact is that, you know, we can't all use ModGov. And I found out today it's not just my inability to get onto the system, it's because I have a laptop and not a tablet, and it is impossible to use. And I've often made the case that we can't print off at home. But it's not the IT, it's the system that we're bound by GDPR. And those are the things that we have to take into account. But if there is any way that we can make it easier, because I can't read off one of those, and I'm sure other members are having the same sort of problems. So if there's a way of operating in the future better, then we should explore it. But don't let's condemn our IT staff, because they are great.
Councillor Hughes.
Chair, I wasn't saying anything about the IT staff. They have, but I would say that my tablet has been to and fro, and I still can't download PDFs from that are sent to me, and I can't forward them. I've had photographs and videos from residents showing flooding, which I haven't been able to forward.
Can we take this in another time?
We can, but I think this is an important issue in the running of this council. I brought it up at several meetings, and nothing is done about it. We could at least be able to print from our tablets, print from any other device, and this is, as I understand it, it's because these systems are locked down, and as Councillor Whitehead said, several of us work for multiple organisations, and we use the same device in each of those organisations with different identities for each organisation, and we're allowed to do that. And that includes national governments, other foreign governments, and other public sector institutions. So I think we are suffering greatly because of unnecessarily tight security on the systems, which stop us doing a lot of things that we ordinarily would do.
Thank you. Councillor G.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Steve, Council Leader, because I think I've had great support from IT department. If I'd have had a little problem with my iPad thing, they've fixed it. And I've found it quite easy to use the iPad for all my emails. If I want to print something, I just forward it to my personal or business email and then print it out on my office printer. Plus, staff are very helpful. If you need a printed version, you've got one. They'll do it for you straight away. You can come and pick it up. Now, I've heard Councillor Whitehead talk about NHS, but how much money's been wasted in NHS on new IT equipment and systems? So this is a small council. We've got a relatively small budget. We need to be careful with what we spend, and sometimes the old-fashioned way is a good way.
Thank you. I think that brings us neatly to the point where we could hopefully move to a vote. So we've had a proposer and a seconder. If we're all in agreement, can we have a show of hands in favour, please? 1 to 6. Yeah. I think that's everybody. Anyone against? No abstentions? No, that is carried. Thank you very much. We move on to our next item then, which is item 14. That's Local Council Tax Support Scheme. Karen again.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is asking members to approve a local council tax support scheme for 2025-26. So this is the scheme that allows people on low incomes or that have low amounts of savings to receive a reduction against their council tax. They receive a reduction of 91.5%, I think it is. so they still have a small bill to pay. And there's a separate scheme mentioned in the report, and that's the discretionary hardship fund, and that's a sum of money. We're requesting that remain at £20,000, and the Revenues and Benefits Manager can award amounts from that fund that effectively wipe out that remaining 8.5% of a resident's bill, so that in cases of very severe hardship, the council taxpayer has nothing to pay. We're recommending that the scheme remain essentially as it is in the current year. There were some minor changes required by the government regulations. They just update various thresholds and amounts. So essentially it will stay as the current scheme. Thank you.
We have some questions. Councillor Whitehead, first of all.
So I'm just going to say thanks, Karen. Yeah, obviously kind of very supportive of this sort of compassionate and caring kind of recommendations in your report. If it's so fitted with council, I would like to propose this and move straight to a vote unless there's other questions.
I'll just get one other question from Councillor Nash. And Councillor
Thanks. Hi, Karen. You may have done this in a paper that came to us earlier in the year, but are the criteria tied down well enough that you're comfortable with it?
The criteria are set out in a very detailed document on our website, which mirror the government's regulations in most of the ways. So yes, I am.
Okay. So because there were discussions earlier in the year about whether it reflected the latest. So you're saying it's now updated to government standards and we're comfortable with it?
I've been told that it reflects the government standards. It certainly deals with things like the evidence we expect to see. It states that under the government legislation, if we request somebody to provide evidence of savings or income, that should be provided within a month, unless council deems otherwise. Okay. I think that was the one we were looking at.
And the criteria of who was eligible was the other area that we looked at.
Yeah, that's set out as well.
Okay. Thanks.
Question from Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. I'm fully supportive of this, and I'd like to back Councillor Whitehead's comments that it is a very compassionate scheme, and I thank Karen for bringing this recommendation forward. And if Councillor Whitehead's moved it, I'll second it, Chair.
We also have a question from Councillor Dobbs.
No, I was going to offer to second it and draw members' attention to 2.18, which I think says it all, actually, in terms of this is a good scheme and it's working well. It has to be reviewed, but...
Okay, thank you. So we've got a proposer from I think it's Councillor Whitehead, was it? Yes, that's right. And a seconder from Councillor Slack. Do we have anyone who wishes further to speak on this? No. Can we move straight to the vote then? We've had that requested. All those in favour? 1 and 2. Thank you. And all those against? Any abstentions? We have 1 abstention. Thank you, members. Moving on to the next item then. Now this, on my reckoning, is the former item 11. This is now we've renumbered it item 15. So it will be 11 in your original pack, which is that's the fraud prosecution policy for... No, sorry, my apologies. Can somebody just remind me on which one this is? Car parks, thank you. Vicky.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully members will see the amount of work that's gone into this report. In July 22 at the GNR, the scope of the car park review was agreed, and an amount of work was carried out with officers and members of the car park member working group throughout the last 18 months, or 18 months leading up to March 24. And in March 24 at GNR we put together a report that demonstrated each of the car parks, what the users were, the capacity, to ensure that instead of having a one-size-fits-all, that we could put together a package of proposals that would address some of the issues that had been raised by members and by members of the public, particularly residents. So we spent an inordinate amount of time going through each of the car parks, and more of that detail is in the report that was presented to GNR. At GNR then we had recommendation to go for some consultation, which we did with members of the public, visitors, local workers and businesses. That was carried out in July and August towards the middle of September last year, and this report now outlines the recommendations that were discussed with the car park member working group, which were majoritarily accepted, and obviously in the pack includes responses to the consultation. Just some brief points just of note. From residents we had 1,692 responses, and there was quite a large percentage of those from Ashbourne. And in terms of the 3 questions that were relevant to this report, because we're only dealing at this stage with car parks that have charges applied already, the responses from residents and businesses on those questions that were pertinent to them were generally in favour and or in support of the proposals that we're outlining today. So it just leave it to members really if you've got any questions on the report itself. There's quite a number of recommendations. The first recommendation is really about outlined in Appendix 4, and these are the charges and how the car parks are being categorised in each town. The second sort of recommendation has got a number of parts to it, which mainly relates to permit schemes. Predominantly we're asking for most of them to stay the same price, but we are suggesting a reduction in the discount season ticket in response to the fact that we are a highly a lot of local workers work in hospitality or have a reduced income. So £555 would be quite a lot of money, so we're suggesting to reduce that to £480, and they can pay that monthly as well using the Pay by Phone app, so it's a little bit more accessible and affordable. The rest of the permits and reserved bays and resident permits to stay the same. There's a few recommendations for Ashbourne specifically, because the proposals we would like to have implemented in April this year due to the Ashbourne Reborn wouldn't be appropriate, but we wanted to show some commitment to Ashbourne that we were committed to making some changes. So there is a 4-hour maximum period in Shawcroft Car Park currently, and we're committed to removing that in April 26, if not before, when the Ashbourne Reborn project is completed. And similarly with the leisure swimming centre, we would hoping to put a flat rate of that from April, but we're delaying that a full year just to make sure that we've got the people for that car park are using it for the leisure centre rather than people that work in the town or visitors, so they won't be able to park there. And then lastly, for consideration is, currently we have to go through a full car park review before we make any changes or consider any changes to the fees and charges. So I'd like to recommend that moves into the fees and charges consideration process. It doesn't mean you have to put the charges up every year, but it just offers that bit of flexibility should we need to make some changes. Open up to questions.
Do members have any questions on this? Yes, Councillor Whitehead.
Kind of interested in everything tonight. Thanks, Vicky. It's an excellent report. You said then that kind of most of the car parks kind of actually won't see any major change, but obviously I'm particularly interested in the Cromford Marketplace car park, which is currently free to use. But is it part of the what I couldn't really understand is the recommendation on these free to use car parks is that we will be bringing fees into them, because I wasn't quite clear on the recommendations pertaining to those particular ones. And obviously because of the way Cromford Marketplace is used kind of majority by local people in Cromford throughout the day, it's really hard for me to support if that is part of the proposal.
Thank you, Chair. The only proposals included in this report are the car parks we're already charging. So all of the free at the point of use car parks, we will meet with the car park member working group and go through each of those and look at the comments received as part of the consultation and make a decision whether either any of these move forward, and if they do we need to further consultation. So nothing for free car parks.
Fabulous. Thank you. That's brilliant.
Councillor Nash.
Thanks, Chair. Hi, Vicky. I don't want to ask you questions about the report. We spent quite enough time on Monday at C&E. I just wanted to check that one of the things we talked about was reviewing phases 2 and 3 in the future. before we go ahead, because the criteria for those were set some time ago, and I just want to check that's still on the cards.
I mean, if members want to change the scope of the remainder of the review, then that would be down to members' decision whether to do that. I mean, currently at the moment, it's obviously been approved, but it's open to members as to whether that wants to change in the future. Not necessarily. I don't know if it's for tonight, but we could look at that.
Yeah. So I don't need to propose a motion then.
Councillor Archer.
Thanks, Chair. I was hoping to move this if there were no further questions. I wonder if we were getting to that point.
Okay, that's a proposal then.
Yeah. So yeah, could I speak on that?
Speak, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I was one of the, and I will say lucky because I have actually enjoyed this working group, believe it or not. One of the lucky people to have been on it right from the start since July 22. Makes me very happy to bring these proposals forward and recommend it. I think the officers, Vicky and the team, have done a really first-class job. It's been difficult with interruptions from elections and changes of members of the working group, and they've done a really good job of providing us all with really detailed data, excellent modelling, and allowed us to form what I think is a really excellent set of proposals that give us a really good balance of protecting revenue streams, which is important, but also keeping parking costs affordable for residents, while creating a flexible, much more flexible parking option for all our residents, businesses and visitors. I think if you also think about that being combined with the extension of free parking hours that's been provided by the residence permit extension as well, that also adds to the offer here. So we will definitely need to review it, because although the modelling has been excellent, there are some really significant and innovative and I believe positive changes here. So we'll need to monitor it carefully and review it after 12 months or whatever it may be, just to make sure it is doing what we anticipate it will do. But essentially, I'd like to really thank the officers and all the other members of the working group. It's been a really good process, and I think the positive feedback that we've had from the consultation is a testament to the good work that's been put in. So yeah, I'm very happy to move this, and I hope it finds support tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Dobbs?
Happy to second it and echo what Councillor Wayne said earlier this week. This is a lot of good news here, I hope, for our residents, and I do commend this to councillors.
Thank you. And Councillor Felicity, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, only to endorse the comments from Rob. We have a team of two on this, Vicky and Ben, and they've done a tremendous amount of work on this item, over and above what they usually do, and I can only say thank you from the bottom of my heart, the amount of work that you've put in on this. You have tried to keep us in tune, because we've not agreed on everything over the period, but common sense has prevailed, and as Rob said, it's a good working team, and our officers are there to support us, and they've done that immaculately. Thank you.
Councillor Wayne.
Thank you. I did say that actually at the queue. Yes, I remember that now. But it is good news, and I'm not going to go through everything, but I think this is good news, and I'd like to thank the group, and I'd like to thank Vicky and her very limited staff that she has, because at the end of the day, it enables the members of the public in the towns and other areas to, if they want to nip in somewhere, it enables them just to do that. They're still covered by their actual disc from the hours of 11 till 3, but in that intervening period, then they can just nip in and get a prescription and not get, I won't say exploited for £1.50, but at the end of the day, it's expensive for half an hour, isn't it? Or even just a visit. The other thing that I'm really pleased about is it reduces the cost for, cash-strapped people that work in the service industry in this town. They come to work, and it enables them to have about £75 reduction in their season ticket if they want it. But that's got to be publicised. And I know we did discuss the other night at C&E about putting ceilings on those. But I think we need to have a good publicity drive to ensure people know about this, because we need to put more pounds in people's pockets and make them, being able to spend it elsewhere. But thanks very much for those involved. Thanks.
Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. I echo everything that Steve said, and Robert, and I've been on the working group right from the very beginning, like Robert, and we've had many, many hours of hard work, and I'd like to thank Vicky for all what she's done, team, and I think most of my residents have contacted me and said how good it is. They've heard that they'll be half an hour free, so they can nip in my ward, the local chemist on Worsford Marketplace, nip into the chemist, come out, and not have to put a ticket, pay for it. So it's really good. We've really done well with that, and reducing the hours slightly as well. So yeah, it's been a really good and successful, and I'm right behind this recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. We won't go through the entire CNE meeting again. I welcome Rob's thing. It is important to review this and protect the revenue stream, but we cannot be seen as a cash cow to support this council. We do have to think of the people that are coming in, whether they be locals or workers. Things are, cost of living is going up, and even with the reduction in this, it's still a lot of money if you're on the minimum wage. So. And I think we had a late representation. Not going to go through everything again, but I welcome the fact that we will keep having discussions and it won't just be automatically go up next year. Thank you.
I'm going to take a slightly counter view. I'd like to thank you also for the report and the hard work, because I think you have done exactly what you've been asked to do with very few resources, so that is good. I think we as a council, however, need to think about the optics of this, in that this provides effectively another subsidy to car owners, and my inbox at the moment is full of issues around car ownership, parking, the lack of strategy across the Dales, across the Peak Park, particularly in the Hope Valley, and I'm not sure the pricing strategy that we are sort of laying out here supports perhaps where we should be going strategically in terms of how people move around in the middle of a climate crisis.
Thank you. Councillor Bull.
Yeah, I agree with everybody as regards what good work, but I just heard a little comment as what Councillor Slack was stating, that the business about the half hour and they'll be able to just pop in and without getting a ticket. Please let it be noted, you might be parking free for half an hour, but you still have to get a ticket to do it. So that really has to be signposted, because we're not here to try and catch people out. So signposting and making sure that that is obvious, that a ticket has to be taken up prior to them leaving their car just for the half an hour. I know it seems tedious, when you say, oh, we're just going to pop in for 10 minutes, that you've got to walk across to the ticket machine and walk back again. But it has to be done, and we have to make that clear, because we don't want the enforcement officers going around and having a field day that we're taking more money than we should be for that downfall.
Thank you for that important clarification.
Thank you, Sue, for pointing that out. I didn't mean to say, I didn't mean it in that respect at all. I meant if half an hour free, and you have to get a ticket, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Linthwaite.
I just wanted to speak in favour of the 30 minutes, the free 30 minutes really, because it's a significant saving. On Tuesday, I popped into Shawcroft car park to run some errands for an elderly relative, and 15 minutes cost me £1.65. So I should be using that 30 minutes. Thank you.
Councillor G.
Just one little clarification. 30 minutes is actually 40 minutes. That's because,
thank you,
for obvious reasons.
Okay. We've had our proposer and our seconder, haven't we? Can we move to a vote, please, on this one? All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? A couple of abstentions. Thank you very much, members. Good. Move on to the next item then. I believe I've got this one right. This would be the local development scheme. Esther, please.
Thank you, Chair. The report before you this evening sets out a revised local development scheme for the preparation of the Derbyshire Dales local plan. The local development scheme is essentially a timetabling and project management tool which sets out key dates by which we will prepare, consult upon and hopefully adopt a revised local plan for the district. As you may well be aware, there were significant changes announced by government to the planning system before Christmas, with the publication of a new national planning policy framework. As part of that, all local authorities are required to prepare and submit a new local development scheme to the Secretary of State by the 6th of March. Due to the committee cycle, that is why this paper is with you this evening for approval. Mike and I have discussed at length the contents of the local development scheme, the work programme and timetabling with the Chair and Vice Chair of the Local Plan Subcommittee. So in considering the timetable for the preparation of the revised local plan, we need to be mindful of the transitional arrangements which are set out within the new National Planning Policy Framework. If we are to prepare a new local plan under the current system, we have to submit it for examination by December next year. An alternative to that would be to delay the plan preparation process and prepare a plan under the new plan making system set out in the wider planning reforms proposed under the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act. This, however, would lead to significant delay and leave the council at further risk of speculative development in unfavoured locations across the district. So on balance, we feel that it is appropriate that we try to progress the adoption of a local plan as quickly and as expediently as possible and submit to the Secretary of State by December 2026. You will see in paragraph 2.7 of your report the proposed dates by which we hope to achieve key milestones with the preparation of the new plan. So over the next 10 months, we will continue to prepare evidence-based documents and reports which will support the policies and proposals in the new local plan. You may wonder why that is going to take till the back end of this year. We have new evidence to gather, further work to do to look at the policies in the local plan to reflect the significant uplift in housing that has been imposed upon us from the changes in the National Planning Policy Framework. So we feel that we need to spend that time to generate evidence and justify our approach as to how we meet that need and the direction of growth and where that goes within the district. Following that, this time next year, we hope to be able to come to you and present, well, before Christmas next year, but hope to go out in January next year on consultation on a draft plan and then undertake further consultation on our proposed submission plan in August next year to hopefully meet the deadline of submission to the Secretary of State by December 2026. Beyond which we would see examination in the spring and hopefully adoption of a revised local plan later on in 2027, possibly September time, given however long it may take for the examination to take place. Happy to take any questions, thank you.
I'm a little bit confused, to be honest. Have I got this right, that it's more than likely we're going to be abolished in 2027? Because if that is so, what on earth is all this really about ultimately? From my perspective, I'm not a cynic, but the damage has already been done in Darley-Dale, and the damage is going to be increasingly done under the current, I could stomach the government's current situation if it was actually delivering affordable homes, local need homes. We've got this thing, haven't we, up the road for 400 houses. How many are for local need?
Okay. I'm not sure if that was a rhetorical question.
Yeah, you're right, but it seems to me it's over.
Councillor Buckler.
It's about the evidence in terms of is there somewhere set out what evidence we're currently collecting? Because we had conversations last week about the impact of flooding and issues like that, and flooding from increasing, and you know, I know that developments aren't supposed to increase the risk of flooding downstream, but there must be a cumulative impact. And so can we, you know, if we're collecting evidence until the end of December, it will be good to see what evidence there it is that we're collecting and be able to see, because actually there may be, you know, I hope that everybody looks at the discussions that we had last week to realise how important the local plan is, to make sure that we have a good, accurate, well-evidenced local plan rather than trying to get it done quickly. So if we could see a list of the evidence that we're trying to collect to make a good local plan as quickly as possible, that would be really helpful.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah, we are duty bound to prepare a justified and evidence plan. We're in the process of procuring significant amounts of additional evidence on a whole raft of issues, and flooding is one of those issues that we will be looking at in terms of strategic flood risk assessment, and also sort of infrastructure delivery planning that supports the preparation of the local plan. We envisage reporting the evidence base through a series of meetings of the local plan subcommittee and reporting the outcomes of that evidence based work through them, and hopefully that will give them an indication of the evidence that's emerging as we progress with the plan process.
Councillor Buttle.
Can I just follow up on that?
Yeah.
It would be good to know what evidence is being collected, as well as the results of the evidence that's being collected, because actually there may be things that we say we think that we need this evidence as well, and then we can at the local plan working group we can have further conversations about that. Right. So I'm less concerned. I'm sure that the evidence that comes from the experts will be what we've got, but it'd be really good to know what the evidence is that's being collected, just so that we can say, actually, we think that we need to be collecting this evidence as well.
Chair, I can just come back on that particular point. Councillor Butler is a member of the local plan subcommittee, and we've met on 2 occasions before Christmas, and on both of those occasions we've set out for members of the local plan subcommittee the type and nature of the evidence we're looking at. And as Esther said, you know, one of the issues that we're looking at is around flood risk. The other issue is around the actual potential for development options across the district, the issue around infrastructure viability. Those are part of the evidence base, and all of those are the things that we have discussed. And if Councillor Buckler thinks that there are areas that we are missing, we have a meeting of the local plan subcommittee next week. We can discuss that again next week.
It would be good to see a list.
Thank you. Councillor Buttle.
It's looking like a green thing, this, isn't it? I have pretty similar questions and queries, and I think I disagree with David quite a lot. I think the local plan is going to be what we can feed through into the future to support our environment and communities, and we should be taking it very seriously. We're doing a lot of conversations about prioritisation of council and corporate plan at the moment, and I keep saying local plan, local plan. This is the thing that really matters. It's the thing that we need to have well evidenced, well supported, and we need it to be there for the people that are going to be taking over from us, for MCA or whoever it is, the North Derbyshire, West Derbyshire, whatever we end up being. And this matters. So I'd say, yes, I'd like to see a list of evidence, and also evidence being gathered. I'm very interested in water quality. I think what we're doing to our water in this country is absolutely abhorrent. I really think it is, the way we're filling it full of sewerage. And I'd want as much evidence as possible that we can bring to bear on Severn Trent and the likes to actually make sure that we are looking after our environment. So, yeah, local plan, absolutely want to see it happen. I think it's very, very important, and it's my priority, really. Thank you very much. Oh, I meant to ask a question, yes. Could I have a list, please?
All right, yes, we are dealing with questions here. Councillor G.
Yeah, because I do want to ask a question about this, because when I first looked at this paper, I thought, well, this is just like a technical paper that is something we're legally bound to agree a timetable, and I accept that. But because this new MPPF is a radical change to what we've been trying to achieve before, am I correct in saying it's going to require this council to produce a brand new spatial strategy in order to deliver those targets? And I think this timetable is really, it just pays lip service to it, and it's almost like, because I really believe that most of this council don't support the targets we're being asked to deliver, because it'll cause a lot of damage to Derbyshire Dales. And I think I've probably got quite a unanimous agreement on that. So just by paying lip service and voting this through tonight, we're basically leading down a road. It's a slippery slope to something that none of us really want, because that spatial strategy is going to be a huge implication in the future to this beautiful area that we all live in.
Is there a response to that?
Chair, in terms of the comments that Councillor G makes, you know, the new MPPF does make significant changes in terms of the approach to the calculation of housing need, and members may be aware that that sort of consequence of that is to change from what we have in the local plan at the moment, which is 284 dwellings per annum, to notionally 580 dwellings per annum. Now, there is a bit of a get-out clause, technical get-out clause in the MPPF, which allows us to look at alternative methods. And one of the things that we're doing as part of the evidence gathering is, and I think it's quite right for us to do this, is to look at whether or not there are alternative way of calculating the requirement for Derbyshire Dales, and then having the discussion around how that's apportioned between ourselves and the national park. And that's part of that process. And then we would obviously then deliver through the local plan the requirement which we think is appropriate for the planning authority area as opposed to the district as a whole. But it's fundamentally changing where we're going and the direction we're going in. I don't think we've really got much choice at the moment, because, as Esther said in introduction, if we move away from not having a local plan, or wait and delay for alternative arrangements, whatever those alternative arrangements may be, and we don't know what they are at the moment, because there's still a lot of time and a lot of water to go under the bridge before we get to that point. If we delay, it opens the floodgates to the potential for more speculative development in places where, as a council, we may not want that development to take place. So what we're then doing is not having a plan, we're just letting, if you like, the market determine the scale and the location of where development goes forward. And the planning system in this country is based upon a plan-led approach. If we don't have a plan in place, and the longer a plan takes to get to adoption, the greater the risk it is for the authority to face those consequences.
Councillor Bull.
Yeah, can I just say, obviously I can see this as a scheme and what you've just actually said there, but with our local plan, I do agree. We fell foul last time when we put in a local plan where things were identified, and unfortunately we've ended up with what we've ended up with around. But because it is our local plan and there are things in change, can this be like a movement? You're saying that you're going to get this and you're putting the evidence in and your schemes of how you're going to put it forward, but is that carrying on being devolutionary itself, that it can carry on changing within this time period because the goalpost has actually moved under the scale of the MPPF and the amount of extra houses and the likes?
You know, we've been given a deadline for the submission of the plan by the Secretary of State. You know, the emphasis that's been coming through from the current government is that, you know, the planning system works too slowly and we need to move forward very quickly. we are effectively having to put a plan in place over essentially a period of 2 years. And what we've tried to do is try to ensure that with the resources we've got, both sort of internally within the team and also the financial resources which we've been made available to us, to make sure that we've got the right evidence to prepare a plan in a timely manner under the auspices of the local plan subcommittee, and to enable us to hit the targets that we're being asked to hit in terms of the submission of the plan by the end of next year. You know, there are potential risks along the line with the approach we take, but we've sought to identify those within the local development scheme, and we will keep monitoring progress within the team and with the local plan subcommittee to make sure that we deliver the plan on time. In terms of the policy and the approach that's taken within that document, that's something that we will be discussing as an officer team with the local plan subcommittee, and then ultimately bringing it back through community environment, so that they've got, as they have ownership of the production of the plan.
Can I just ask, obviously the plan that we've got in place now, how long was it supposed to have been lasted for? What date?
The plan period for the current adopted plan takes us to 2033. What we're proposing to members through the local plan subcommittee is that plan that we're bringing forward at the moment would have a plan period that goes from 2020 to 2045.
Okay. All right. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Sometimes in planning, I feel that the government represents the Soviet Union, not the UK, by setting centrally planning numbers on a calculated basis to give need, instead of doing market research locally to find out what the need actually is. And we have in our plan a statement saying that one of the policies is about satisfying local need. In fact, there are two policies in the local plan about satisfying local need, yet when it comes to examination of individual cases by the planning inspectorate, they look at national need and they say, whoa, if you're providing houses, that's good. Forget about the affordable houses, we can just do that. So I have a real problem with the overall the planning system. The Localism Act is an exercise in double think, because is that the right word, from 1984, where it says one thing and does the other. It says increased local decision making. In fact, it takes local decision away from people like us and our communities, and puts it centrally into the planning inspectorate, who, whatever we do, will take over what we have done and impose what they want to do. And they are beholden to government, not beholden to us and our local community. And it's an absolute disgrace in anti-democratic activity in this country. And the current government is continuing that system. It's imposed a whole set of calculated targets. Now, so my question is, I have two questions. The first is, can we take market research as a basis for as an alternative to the calculation, the central planning calculation undertaken by government to determine market need? Any commercial organisation would do that. So I suggest we need to go out to the developers and ask them how many houses they would want to build in Derbyshire Dales each year, and how many houses can they build in Derbyshire Dales this year, next year, and over the next 5 years, given all the infrastructure projects that government has identified, and the 1.48 million houses that will be built elsewhere in the country. So that's my first question. The second question is about evidence. Now, I think we would. My question is, can we use evidence from our residents to inform us on situations, for example, flooding situation in Brailsford and places like that, where the residents have been complaining year in, year out about the flooding from the drainage systems in Brailsford, yet we keep on adding houses to that suffering community. So can I ask that we take residents' videos and pictures to demonstrate how the drainage systems in many of our villages and in some of our towns are not up to the level of development that we are that is considered appropriate by developers. And again, I point to my IT because I have videos and pictures from Brailsford which I have not been able to pass on to officers because I cannot forward the attachments in my email system. They're too big. Thank you.
I'm not sure if there's a response to that. Mike, do you want to comment on the evidence base?
I'll just come back on the 2 points that Councillor Hughes makes around sort of market research with developers and the evidence-based side of things. As part of the work that we're doing, as Councillor Hughes will be aware, and I've said before, is that the starting point that we need to be looking at is what essentially is the right number for Derbyshire Dales. Now, we have been given a methodology, and the guidance makes some very clear hints that potentially we could vary the methodology because we have this split with the National Park to try and look at how we apportion the bit between Derbyshire Dales as a planning authority and the National Park. We're in the process of procuring some consultants to help us look at the evidence to unpick whether or not there is a methodology out there that might be more suited to Derbyshire Dales rather than the standard methodology. We don't know what the outcomes of that will be, so that might then bring the figure down. We've then got to then look at whatever that figure might be, identifying an approach, and Councillor Hughes and myself and Esther have had long discussions about this, about what the approach should be, and we can't necessarily at this moment in time prejudge that. We have to look at the raft of other information, most notably what sites are available, where they are, how that fits in with the delivery of sustainable communities and all of that. And we've then got to be mindful of the fact that we've got to deliver a 5-year supply at the point at which we submit the plan. And the point that you make about delivery rates and development rates is something we will need to be very mindful of at the point at which, or throughout the preparation of the plan over the next 18 months or so that we can understand where the sites are most likely to come forward in the first 5 years, the next 5 years, and then the 5 years after that. So we then have a real good trajectory of development. That is something we have to liaise with the development industry about. In terms of the point about evidence and residents, we've done 3 rounds of consultation already. We're building in 2 additional 2 statutory periods of consultation within this next 2 years or so. The evidence that members of the public submit to the council will be part of that evidence base, and it will be then for members to balance that up against the evidence we get from consultants and other statutory agencies, and to give that particular weight in that process. But what I will say to members is that clearly we need to be mindful of the fact that we need to justify our approach, and we need to be in a position where we can provide the evidence to an inspector and Secretary of State that the approach that we're taking is the right one, and that will need to be essentially a balanced approach that members will need to look at when considering the technical evidence and evidence that comes from consultation. That consultation may involve issues around flooding, it may involve issues around location of development and where development should go in its general sense. So there is an opportunity, and public consultation is part of that evidence base.
Did you want to come back on that, David,
Chair,
briefly?
Can I make a point?
I know we've reached the witching hour, yes.
Okay, I'd move, in that case, I would like to move the
We're still in questions.
After the questions, yeah.
But yeah, but can we have a motion to extend the meeting by half an hour, please? Is there a proposer for that? Various hands. Councillor Dobbs, seconder. Councillor Burfoot. All those in favour? Any against? Looks like 4. And any abstentions? No. Okay, that's carried. So we're carrying on until. Thank you. Carrying on until 9 o'clock. Councillor Hughes.
Can I move the recommendation?
Well, we're still just dealing with one or two questions at the moment, if we can. I think Councillor Maelstrom, did you have one?
Yeah, just very quickly. I think I've read, but perhaps officers can confirm, that under the white paper for devolution, whichever authority takes over from us has to accept our local plan if it's already in place and approved.
You may have read more than I have in terms of that particular side of things. But one of the things I was going to say before was that the further we get along the process in terms of getting the plan in, the better chance we've got our plan of being encompassed and incorporated within whatever comes after Derbyshire Dales or whatever local authority reorganisation takes place. So I think, my view is that we need to be pushing forward with this, give us the potential to have a plan-led system and give us an opportunity to say this is what we want to see in the plan going forward beyond 2027 and then move that into the new local government arena at that particular point in time.
Okay. Councillor Butcher. No. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, a question. It strikes me that housing is invariably a sort of subset of economic development. So does that evidence that you're seeking include economic development, how people derive incomes, work, etc.? And okay, I answer that. I have a follow-up question as well.
The simple answer is yes, we are. Yeah. We're not only looking at the sort of methodology, but what the consequences of that change might be in terms of the necessity for employment land, and also what that might mean in terms of, for example, the requirement for additional retail floor space across the town centres.
Okay, and then the follow-up question, and kind of builds on the point about devolution, is are you engaging with sort of adjacent cities, adjacent areas to understand, I guess, the overarching, probably East Midlands mayoral level economic strategy? Because I guess that's ultimately going to drive where work goes, where incomes are earned.
Yeah, we've still got under the current regime the requirement to engage with our neighbouring authorities under the duty to cooperate, and we have a regular dialogue with them to understand the direction of travel that they're going, the consequence and implications of what they're doing, and similarly they understand what we're doing.
Okay, and then final question, and it talks to the risk that you've highlighted, I think it's medium-high, around personnel and the ability to do this. And I mean, we've obviously deferred a motion tonight talking about strategic capacity in the housing area. I mean, how confident are you that, given the work to be done and the time pressure, you have the resources, and we're not going to end up 6-12 months in wishing we'd got ahead of this?
I've said to Councillor Hughes and Councillor O'Brien as the Chair and Vice Chair that, and I've said it before, that with the resources we've got in the team, and in the last 6 months we've had an increase in the resources in the sort of human side of the team, so we've now got extra staff in to help, and we've now got additional financial resources to be able to deliver the evidence base. With a fair wind and managing the process and not being blown off course in too much, I'm confident that we can deliver the plan within the timescales we've got.
Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Mike and Esther. And obviously I'm also part of the local plan subcommittee, and I think we bang our heads against the brick wall with this massive number of houses that we've got to find when our local plan to get the numbers that we thought, that the Derbyshire Dales thought was difficult enough. And I'm in agreement with Councillor Burton, David. You go out to your public and you say Darley Dale don't want to be joined onto Matlock. They're looking at their green spaces and the flooding risk. And anyway, the point I want to make is, well, the question is, do you honestly think that the government will look at changing the methodology? Because every administration in this council has put this forward before about whatever political persuasion were about being in the Peak Park, and I just don't trust them to do that.
I don't think in terms of the new standard methodology that the government will change its view about that. But what the guidance does say is that in areas like Derbyshire Dales and the like, where there are because the standard methodology is based upon a local authority figure, or provides a local authority figure, but the guidance recognises that it's not necessarily easy to disaggregate that down between a local planning authority where the local authority is split in two, for example, like ours. And so it does give the opportunity for an alternative methodology to be looked at. And if we can provide the evidence to suggest that we've done that, and that has got a logic behind it, and the evidence is behind it, then there's no reason why we can't put that to an inspector at an examination. Clearly, I don't know what the results of the evidence and the research might be at this moment in time, but if we think there is a justifiable reason for moving away and taking the line that's in the National Planning Policy Framework, then I don't see any reason why we couldn't necessarily persuade an examiner, an inspector, that the approach we're taking is the right one. But that's without knowing where we are and where we're likely to be.
Councillor Slithers, did you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've been touched on a little bit, but I mean, housing is the big issue here. And I just wondered how the call for sites, if they've been successful, if we've got sites. I'm not asking you to deliberate which sites, because that may cause outside anxiety, but are we successful in that? And what discussions, or how many discussions have we had with Peak Park over this situation? Because I know we had a working group to liaise, but we've not had much feedback on that. And also, I found it difficult yesterday, no, the day before, at an MCA meeting, talking about the lack of transport in the rural areas and the green issues, and yet it seemed that I'd got to get real evidence, and I don't know how officers are interacting with MCA, because that's the way to go if we want a share of the lion's share of the money.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of your first question about the call for sites exercise, we received 57 new site suggestions, which officers are starting to assess. They are in various locations across the district. We also received some proposals for standalone new settlements, but I won't want to disclose the locations of those at the moment.
In terms of the point you make about the National Park, there was a meeting of the Joint Housing Working Group on Tuesday this week. Councillor Hughes was in attendance. What we did at that particular session was to provide a briefing for the members that were at that particular meeting about the changes to the MPPF and the consequences in a little bit more detail than we've gone over this evening, and also to try and have the initial discussion, which I thought was quite productive at that particular session. Councillor Hughes, you might want to make some comments on that, but I think there was a recognition that we do need to continue the dialogue with the National Park. They're going away and collecting some evidence for themselves. We're working on our own evidence, and what we have agreed is that in the near future we'll come back and that forum will be the mechanism, if you like, for agreeing an appropriate distribution between the District Council and the National Park. and that being a satisfactory arrangement to sign off in terms of due to cooperate and the legal requirements we've got. In terms of the EMCA point, it is a very good point. We have written to EMCA. We've had a very introductory type response, which is, thank you, we need to have a discussion and we need to discuss where your local plan is going, what direction it's going in, to see how that can then fit in with the strategy and plans that they're in the process of preparing.
Councillor Bottle.
This one's an actual real question. When we have builders building in our area, they're only going to build to what they call absorption rates, aren't they? They're only going to build the houses that they can sell. Will we be able to encourage them to support affordable housing within those limits and those criteria that suit them?
The simple answer, Councillor Butler, is yes. We will look to identify the extent to which affordable housing is required through the work we're doing, and that will then undermine and underpin the policies that go within the plan, subject to viability issues, which is paramount part of what we have to do. We need to make sure that the policies in the plan that we prepare are capable of being delivered and they don't affect the development rates, but rest assured affordable housing is going to be part of that process.
Councillor Busher. Yes, can I actually make a point of order? We've got a very important paper yet to come on the agenda. This discussion isn't contentious. It's not about whether we pass the motion or not, as far as I can tell. It's primarily lots of interest. It's really important, and we should probably have a separate debate where people can have a conversation like this, but it's not really, if you delay, it shouldn't delay the agenda. So I'd like to propose somehow we get to a quick vote and then move on.
We've already had a proposal to move to a vote. So I have a proposer in the form of Councillor Hughes, I believe. And are you prepared to second that, Councillor Butcher? Okay. All right.
I'll just say one or two words. My comments about the national planning situation is not a reflection on Mike Hayes or Esther Lindley, who are assiduous and so careful in the work that they do in developing the local plan. And so they've got my absolute full support. And okay, thank you, because I know they're battling the same issues, and and doing a pretty good job of doing that. They every day. So turning to Simon Ripton's point about work, the workload. There is a large workload. Esther Lindley and Mike have had to go back over the call for sites and the spatial allocation options in the plan, and the local plan subcommittee will be reviewing those spatial allocation options in the near future so that we can determine what we believe is the best approach for Derbyshire Dales. And there are alternative approaches now on the table, but haven't been discussed in the local plan subcommittee yet, associated with the number of houses that need to be built. So I would like to move the recommendation to adopt the scheme for the next 2 years, 2 years, isn't it? Yeah, to the end of 2027. Thank you.
Thank you. I know there are other questions, but as we've said, this is a big issue, which I think we'll come back to. So, could we have all those in favour, please?
Can we speak to the motion, please, Chair?
We have had a move to go to the vote.
Yeah.
Okay. You've got your seconder, but sorry, my mistake. I thought that was a move to go straight to the vote, but clearly not. Okay.
Well, yes, I am making that point of order, but we have other important items on the agenda, This has not been a lot of the debate has already happened. It hasn't been very contentious. It's more about people making a few points and getting information. Maybe we should have just a couple of minutes of
I think we
debate,
should have a break.
and then try and move to a vote. And you can have this discussion as the chair says in another time.
Okay, so we've had a proposal to have a 10-minute break? 5-minute break?
No, we're not
5-minute
having a
break. Okay.
No, we're not having a break.
I have a. That's a motion in favour of a 5-minute break. Do we have a seconder?
We're finishing at 9.
Well, at the moment, but there are other important items on the agenda.
Before 9, I'm okay.
Yeah, we will.
Well, can't we just finish this? Can't we just finish this item first?
With all due respect, I don't think we're going to complete the agenda by 9 o'clock.
No, the item.
We can complete this item by 9 o'clock, yes.
Yeah, finish, so, because we're in the middle of it, aren't we?
Yes.
Although we've just had questions.
All right.
We're having a proposer and a seconder, and then we're going to...
Okay. We have had a proposal to go to the vote, but I've also had comments from other members that they wish to speak to this. If we're going to go to the vote, we're going to need to have a vote to go to the vote. Yeah. You can, no, am I right in thinking, Councillor Hughes and Councillor Butcher, that you wish to go straight to a vote without debate? That the motion now be put?
Yes, I'll propose that.
So we need to vote on whether members wish to continue the debate. Okay, all right. Can we have a vote in favour of the debate continuing then, please? All those. Okay. And all those, thank you, against continuing the debate? Continue. The vote is in favour of continuing the debate. Who would like to kick off? Councillor G.
Yeah, so I'm very clear about this. I cannot support this for obvious reasons, because the mission statement that's being given to us by the Labour government in terms of the housing that will be deposited on Derbyshire is damaging to Derbyshire Dales. Now, I understand this is just a procedural, but if I vote for this, I'm basically giving you the green light to produce a plan that I know is going to damage the community in Derbyshire Dales. It's just no good. And as Councillor Burton's pointed out, there's issues surrounding what's going to happen in the future with councils. As Councillor Bulls pointed out, we already have an adopted plan which was accepted. It was accepted by an inspector, and it lasts until 2033, that has reasonable housing targets in it. What we're being asked to deliver now is unreasonable and detrimental, so I'm definitely going to be voting against this.
Councillor Dobbs.
I'd just like to point out we currently, under the new scheme, have a 1 point something years housing supply in planning. That means you're finding it very, very difficult to carry on with your current plan. I would put it to councillors, this is very important if you want to shape the future in a sensible way. If you don't put this structure in place and vote for no plan, then it's just going to be a free-for-all. For heaven's sake, we need to get real about this.
Okay, Councillor Burton.
Chair, I think we've had a good discussion. I have valued the contributions from members, and on reflection, I do respect Mike Hayes. And you used a phrase, Mike, about being blown off course, and I think it's very important we don't. And I do hear what other members are saying, but you do have my support in that this needs to be pursued.
Councillor Wayne.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points. I couldn't get my questions in. I did put my hand up, but never mind. I just feel that it is important that we do have or go for a new local plan, because we've got reckless and avaricious planning agents and also developers that will be riding roughshod over our district looking for land to grab hold of and then build, and the inference will be that they've got to build. So I do feel we've got to do that. I think we need to get onto the government, because at the end of the day, the policies that they've got, I think, are undeliverable, and not everybody wants to live in cities like Salford and Sheffield and Birmingham, and we don't want our beautiful area to end up looking like those places. And I think it's vitally important that we move at a pace to get this local plan. I trust Mr. Hayes and his team to do it. However, I must urge that any documentation that is forthcoming is made accessible and retained. And also, in relation to flooding issues, it's vital that sequential tests and also cumulative impact assessments are done. And we need to encourage that is done. I just have very great concerns that the policies that are there at the moment are going to not only destroy this town and this district, but a lot of other communities throughout the country. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, well, most people know my view about planning. I've said it for years continually that I believe the planning system has let us down, especially in Matlock and in Ashbourne, where there's been huge amounts of development that have caused problems, and nobody is solving the problems. We're just getting more and more housing. But after saying that, our team that are working on our local plan have got a tremendous task. They have had for years. And it just shows how we're doing when we've got a good working group working alongside our officers and discussing all these issues and taking them forward on our behalf. And I don't say it very often, but I do appreciate all the work that Mike and his team are putting in for this, because it's not a nice place to be. We're dealing with a lot of anger within our communities, and the sooner we get this job done will be benefit to us all, because somebody at some stage has got to turn around and tell the government that, you know, this is not on, and this is why I want to be involved in EMCA to actually put all the infrastructure and all the facilities in place, because I don't want Derbyshire Dales be dumped on anymore. And I think they're the people now that are going to be in the driving seat, and I want to work alongside them so that we can achieve that. But thank you to Mike and his team for all the excellent work you've been doing. I don't say it very often, Mike, no, but I do appreciate what you have to put up with.
Thank you. Right, we are now in a position, I believe, to move to a vote. We've had a proposer and a seconder. Can we have all those in favour of the recommendation, please? And all those against? And any abstentions? 2 abstentions. Thank you very much. Now, obviously, we're getting close to 9 o'clock. We have had a recommendation to have a 5-minute break. If we do that, can I also have agreement of members to extend the meeting by another half hour? A motion to that effect, please. Councillor Dobbs and Councillor Buff. All those in favour of those two things? Yeah, okay, sorry. And anyone against? That is clearly carried. Okay, we're on a break then. Thank you. Please make it as short as possible.
We did say
I think there's a couple of members who are just using the latrine.
So, for those of you paying attention, we're now on the new item 17, which was formerly item 16, Organisational Resources and Resilience. Can I hand over to Paul Wilson, please?
Chair, before we start,
Yes.
can I ask that the last agenda items be deferred to the next meeting once we finish this?
You may do, but Paul, can I just invite you to comment on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, members are free to make that decision, but I'm conscious that if we do receive the letter from government that we are expecting imminently, then there will be no authority vested in either Councillor Flitter as leader or myself to represent the views of this council in any such discussions, which is the main purpose of the report. So, literally, the report will take 30 seconds from my point of view, but whether it takes longer from your point of view, that's for you to determine.
I'm afraid it will.
So, are you proposing anything there, Councillor Nash?
I was, but in light of what Paul's just said, I'm happy to carry on.
Okay, thank you. All right. On to the organisational resources.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Conscious of the late hour, I'm not going to say too much on this, but fair to say this is a very detailed package of proposals contained within this report. It's in two parts. The first is my usual report to Council, which I tend to do in January every year, which reviews the organisational resources. It does seek to respond to a number of very significant challenges that we have in the organisation at the moment, both in terms of difficulty around recruitment and retention, but also some resilience issues which are clearly identified within the report body itself. The second part of the report actually seeks formal authority from Council following reports that I took to Scrutiny Committee back in September, which looked at a whole raft of measures to increase recruitment and retention. The recommendation is that we are not in a position to introduce all of those at the present time. They have all been costed, and the recommendation is that we take a selective number of them through, which are affordable at this present time, but the remainder will keep under review and come back to members at the appropriate time when financial resources allow us to consider them further. So I'm going to take the report as read, Chair, but clearly if members have detailed questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Councillor Bull.
That said then, Chair, for Mr Wilson, is he taking out some of these recommendations?
No, I'm not taking any of the recommendations out. All the recommendations stand as outlined at 1 to 8 in the report. The only measures that are not being proposed are those which are identified in the second part of the report at paragraph 3.7.
Further questions?
Sorry, I just took it wrong the way, how you said it.
Did you have anything else you wanted to question, Councillor Ball?
No, sorry, I just took it out of context of what Paul said as regards if we don't want to take half of this through. The recommendations of what we're taking through, I would have thought, in the fact of monetary, and then when you're saying about the cost and the likes, I just thought you were identifying some of the things that you didn't feel that ones that we should be looking at the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor G.
Yeah, just a quick clarification. You know these numbers in items 1 to 8, are they all per annum or some of them fixed? Because some say per annum and some like 112,000, 57,000, because it all adds up to £498,000. Is that per annum?
That will be the increase on the establishment per annum, yes.
Yeah, so it's an in-year added cost of £498,000.
No, table 3.11 identifies what the cost is of those measures in 25-26. So there is a total cost for 25-26 of 383,153, but because some of those measures are not permanent ongoing costs, the ongoing cost in 26-27 will be 313648. And then below that there's the option regarding the corporate director issue with the ongoing cost identified at 376297. So that is an annual ongoing cost of the appointment of these staffing resources.
Yeah, and we're accepting that this is affordable, because obviously, yeah.
Okay. Further questions? Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. Paul, looking at this going forward, additional ongoing costs of 376,297 per annum. The financial risk is assessed as high. I mean, we've all had these finance briefings with Karen telling us, particularly over these next couple of years, about what our financials are going to be. It's just such a lot of money. That probably isn't if you had to take some, I mean, you said the option of the corporate director. I think what Councillor Bull was thinking, I was thinking the same, that you were going to say actually we're going to take some of these things out. Is there anything else? Is there anything you think you could do without in this?
Well, clearly this is the debate for members to have. I mean, I'm identifying the staffing resources which the organisation has identified and CLT has identified, and also following discussions with the council leadership. These are the resources which we feel are needed. In some cases, these are not additional staffing resources. You'll see that a number of them are actually to deal with the recruitment and retention issues that we have in planning, in terms of the retention of the temporary interim staff. There is also the Housing Enabling Development Manager, 37,000. That's a direct cost falling on us because, again, the County Council have removed the second homes money because that's where that post was paid from. There are a couple of additional costs identified related to additional staffing resources, but in the main, those costs are quantified moving forward should members approve all of these, and it's for members to determine whether you wish to proceed with all of these proposals or not.
Further questions? No. Okay. In which case, do we have? We've got 8 recommendations there. Is this a proposer and a seconder in the background there?
I'm proposing we move all 8.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mine was actually a question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
It's strange that a report has come to us where it says the financial risk is assessed as high. You know, it does, and I completely accept your point about that. This is what we've said we think we need. It would be good to know from Karen what the financial risk is assessed as high is, because I completely get the point in it, but surely that means that you've got to, we need to have a better weighing up of what those different risks are, because you've identified some risks in there. It would be good to know what the financial risk is high actually means.
I can perhaps help with that, Chair. So the reason why the financial risk is high is because there is such uncertainty regarding how the government will fund local authorities beyond the 25-26 financial year. So there are various changes which are taking place already in the 25-26 financial year. More are expected in 26-27. So nobody can anticipate what the bottom line impact of that will be. What we have done in terms of these proposals, all of these costs have been factored into the draft budgets which have been discussed with the individual political groups. So this is affordable in the financial year 25-26. In 26-27 and beyond, the Council is already aware that it has been facing the prospect of a need to make savings. The precise extent of those savings is something which we have modelled in the medium-term financial plan, but there is great uncertainty around it. So you're absolutely right in increasing the costs of the establishment. That will place an additional pressure on those budgets, but the nature of that pressure and how we mitigate it in the financial year 26-27 is something which none of us can address at this moment in time. But the flip side of that is that you've got some services which clearly do need additional resourcing. There is some discretion in this report, but there are areas whereby unless you do commit some additional resources, then those services are at risk of failure.
Sorry, we had a conversation when we had a conversation with Karen about that because actually the high risk associated with that is the risk of isn't the risk of this expenditure. It's there's a risk that risk that you've just identified is a risk whatever we do, because there's a significant risk associated. When we talked with Karen about the medium-term financial plan, there's no point in having a medium-term financial plan because who knows what's going to happen with it. Obviously we've got a risk associated with that, which I think actually helps me in terms of thinking about this, because that risk is there whatever we do. Just with the number of staff that we've already got, and not delivering the stuff that we want to do, is a greater risk as far as I'm concerned than this risk which we can't do anything about because it's down to the government.
All right. I think we've got 3 more questions again now. Steve? Okay. All right. Okay, so no more question. Councillor Hughes, briefly, please.
A risk is only a risk if you can't really afford it, and we're in a position where we're time limited as an authority, and we've got money in the budget. So are our budget sufficient to cover any shortfall that we have in revenue from the government to finance this?
In the financial year 25-26, yes, they are. Beyond 26-27, we are already looking at a potential requirement for savings, as Karen's identified in the medium-term financial plan, and we do have some reserves to offset that potential savings gap that we need to find. But there is, as I say, so much uncertainty, particularly in regard to business rates, retention and fair funding review, that literally our budget could swing significantly in one direction or the other. And until government announces what those fair funding reviews are going to look like, it's impossible to predict it longer term than that.
So I think that's really the risk to the council overall, rather than perhaps the risk to this particular set of increases in budget.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is this a question? Quickly, please.
On this, if we take these on now, obviously we've budgeted it, but then you say in the ongoing of 26-27, but it's something that we're going to have to do because these are employment posts. It's not something that we can just turn round and say, okay, well, we've had you for a year. Is it going to come in within a year? And then we're going to say, well, we don't need you now. So how are we going to attack in that aspect? Because, yeah, we can afford it now. Who's to say we're going to get these people, because we already know we've had that problem of trying to get them with us. But like I said, it's staff and not actual programmes that we're actually, or projects, shall we say, that we're actually trying to do as a district. These are people's jobs. So are we taking them on and then to turn around and say, can't afford you now, you'll have to go? How does that work?
This council's been in the very fortunate position of not having to make members of staff compulsory redundant, unlike many organisations around us, because of the way we've always managed the budgets. However, we run a very, very lean organisation, and we've got to the point whereby some of the posts that are identified within this report really need to be filled, or we need to seriously think about the type and level of services that we want to deliver for our residents. Because some of our services are not sustainable at the current staffing levels we've got. They really aren't. And you're starting to see the consequences of that. So it's a decision that you have to make. And if we find ourselves in a scenario in 26-27 of having to make a budget saving, then yes, that may well include staff, but it would also include changing our service offer and how we deliver services. So we would look at all of our operations in that case. It wouldn't just be a case of we would need to reduce the staffing establishment, because reducing the staffing establishment impacts on the services that you can deliver. If you've not got the staff, you can't deliver the services. And there's a direct consequence of that in this report, because some of the staff that we currently have, we're having to pick up the funding for because other organisations, such as the County Council, have caused us a problem. So if you don't fund, for example, the Housing Enabling Development Manager, one of your key priorities of delivering more affordable housing isn't going to happen. And there are other examples. Waste. We've got major changes coming into effect from the 1st of April on waste. We've not got enough resource to deliver them. You can't not deliver the waste service. So, yes, it's a lot of money, I entirely accept that, but you've got a decision to make as to whether you want to deliver the quality services we currently deliver or not. It really is as simple as that.
Okay. I believe we have exhausted questions now. Councillor Dobbs.
I was going to talk, it's been proposed and seconded, hasn't it? I was going to talk in debate. Has it not been proposed and seconded?
No, I don't believe it has yet.
In which case, I'm happy to do exactly that.
Okay. So you're proposing, yes? Do we have a seconder?
Seconded, Chair.
Oh, right, okay. Thank you. I must have missed that. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. You wish to speak?
And just to comment that Karen's seen that, it's got her approval at the bottom. You know, this has been discussed many times, and these are Paul's measured suggestions for how to make this council deliver over the next 12 months. I think it deserves our support and for the work that he's put in to identify these as the priorities. So I have no hesitation in putting forward these proposals, and I urge other councillors to do the same.
Councillor Wayne, we're now in debate.
We are. So basically, it's going back to the CCTV really. It's about future-proofing, but I think we owe it to our community that whilst they've still got the Derbyshire Dales District Council, we give them as good a service as we can. And if that means that, you know, we're not going to be on our own with this, there's going to be other district councils, and hopefully, if that's the case, I hope the government wake up and smell the coffee and bring in, you know, appropriate measures to ensure that whoever's in charge is properly funded. But I do feel we owe it to the communities to give them the best service we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Buttle.
Thanks very much. I don't know if I'm actually proposing this or not. I might be, I might not.
I think you are.
But I would if I was given the chance. I just want to say we've got to act with confidence. What's happening here is we're being closed down quite slowly, and people are going to go. People are going to be disappearing in every direction. And we have to act with confidence, and we have to be pushing ahead, and we have to be hitting every target we can. And that involves actually being ambitious enough to take people on, to deal with all the issues that we need to deal with, and to actually expand our offer. So I'm absolutely in favour of this one.
Thank you. Councillor Linthwaite.
Thank you, Chair. For me, there are two issues here, apart from the affordability, which Karen has obviously stamped and said, yep, she's comfortable for the time being at least. There's the services to the public, but there's also the welfare of the staff who are already working here. They're under a huge amount of pressure. That is obvious. You know, you've only got to look at stats regarding welfare. So I would urge everybody to just grab the bull by his doodahs and vote for it. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. I just think it's reckless in these sort of circumstances, you know, just to think, oh, well, it's coming to an end, let's spend it, let's do. You know, there's real people here who have been taken on to do a job. We went and had the budget. You know, she said it's a high risk. She doesn't tell councillors which way to go. But when we were in there, you know, we haven't put enough aside for the bin lorry replacement. You know, I just think if she really scared the pants off us telling us what it was going to be like next year. She really did, and she speaks in quite a measured way. So I just think it's reckless to go ahead with this when you know that next year it's going to be really bad, because they're real people you're talking about that will be possibly looking at redundancy.
Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. Well, to talk about recklessness, I think it's reckless to expect our CLT officers to cope with the amount of work that's been thrown at them, because they are far overstretched. I feel, and I'm thankful for Paul to bring this report to us, because he's brought 2 or 3 more before now. We've gone in the way of finance and not accepted them. And the leadership actually asked Paul to undertake this exercise to show us where the gaps were in the service, because it is not about finance, it is about resilience, it's about getting things done that we want done in our corporate plan, and it's about getting the services out there that our residents need. So we've got to bite the bullet here, and we've got a number of staff in this authority, we've had reports before, that are of the age where they're thinking about retirement. And if that comes sooner than rather later, then we're going to be losing some excellent staff. And how are we going to prove that? So we need not only a retention, but and we need that continuation of homegrown officers to actually do the work. And the teams behind the CLT members are very sparse, and you can see through this report where the gaps are. Now, if we don't support this tonight, you're going to get nothing else done in 2 years that we may have, we may not have. But also, the services out to our members of the public are going to suffer. I can't sit here and say to Paul, who said to me, and I think he said to the other leadership, it's going to cost. And he's worried about that. Well, I'm saying put that aside now. Let's support the staff. Let's give them the team to carry on, and let's make us proud of Derbyshire Dales.
Councillor G.
This is an important paper, and I'm minded to support this, especially since the fact that Karen's said that we can afford it, which is important. And we do know it is at high risk because it's been pointed out to us, because we're going to have a serious problem. Is it in 2026, 2027? And we've got to think about, is it bin contract? You know, I don't want to be sitting in a council that's got an in-year deficit like Amber Valley had, and then Mazars people telling us about it and not giving us a good reward when they come and give their report. So it is serious. But one of the things that I remember just recently, didn't we have this meeting where we were talking about the public estate, and we all got behind this building which belongs to Derbyshire Dales District Council. And you know, I've heard Paul explain to us about retention and getting staff and how difficult it is, and we have to give a little one-off payoff and stuff like that, and way of working. And I've heard about resilience and working as a team. Well, I walk through these offices and there's a lot of, you know, we talk about gaps in service, a lot of gaps in this office. And I'd like, if we're paying these wages out, which is public money, I'd like to see this office building being vibrant and full of these staff that we're paying. You know, I understand that people want to work at home, but I don't think it's the best thing. I think for public services, it's better if you come here, you bring these people into Matlock. If you want to give them a bonus, let them have a slightly longer lunch and go and spend the money around Matlock at dinner time. But please, you know, let's not make it a one-way street. Let's try and make this our public estate that is successful.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
I'll make this short and sweet. I think it's a high risk to not do this. If you actually read the rest of 8.2, it's measured there about the high risk of spending this in the outlay, but actually it's a high risk of not delivering, and the impact to us, not only our reputation, but financially, potentially in the short to medium term as well. So I think we need to consider that, and I'm voting for this.
Okay, I think we're ready to move to a vote. We've had a proposer and seconder. Can we see a show of hands in favour, please? Okay, and any against? And any abstentions? Okay, that is clearly carried. Members, you know, we are at this point again half an hour on. We have one final item which we are assured is extremely short. Can I have your assent to indulge for that final item, please? That's a proposer and a seconder, Councillor Dobbs and Councillor Burfoot. All those in favour? Any against? A couple, I think. And any abstentions? No. Right.
Thank you, Chair. I won't indulge you too long on this one. It's a very important paper. Clearly, the Devolution White Paper is receiving a lot of media coverage at the moment. Two particular aspects within it: the issue of devolution, the creation of strategic authorities, but focusing most attention around local government reorganisation. The key thing with this report is that clearly we are expecting an announcement from government imminently, which we expect to identify a timetable for this authority and other authorities in Derbyshire to respond. And as leader of the council and chief executive, we need some degree of authority from council to be able to represent the views of this authority in such discussions. So that's the main purpose of the report. Chair, with your agreement, I'd like to add a third recommendation in this, and this is something which has been discussed at Derbyshire Chief Executives and is common across pretty much all authorities in Derbyshire, and that is to set up a sum of money which this council may put into a pot should we be in the situation of having to prepare options appraisals type documents within a very short time frame. So the third recommendation that I would propose is that Council approves a budget of £50,000 to be financed from the General Reserve to facilitate active participation in the joint commissioning of any work pursuant to the implementation of the English Devolution White Paper. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering how the views of the Council are going to be determined. There's nothing in this which indicates the process for consulting members about options that are carried forward at a strategic with other councils.
Absolutely, Chairman. The intention would be that any significant decisions that are asked of this authority would come back through council. So the delegation that I'm seeking in this report is for Councillor Flitter and myself to be party to the discussions that are taking place already on a non-committal basis. Any commitment, members will have sight of that.
Okay. Councillor Slack, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. I think we've known this has been coming for a long while, but when we first they set up the combined authorities, it was obvious we got too many tiers of government, and it would be eventually have to take some out or combine some, and it's coming about. We will have to combine with other districts or borough councils. Probably we'll see the end of the county council, them lot up there. We've made a big mess of it, but we've got to go forward, and we've got to be prepared, and this sum of money has got to be put aside for that case when we are taking part in joining together over districts or boroughs. It's all up in the air at the moment. We don't know. Probably the leadership knows a bit more than what we do where we're going, but we will be probably, I guess, we'll be 4 unitary authorities in Derbyshire and get rid of the county council, I believe. And I think that's probably the best way to go, really, in the long run.
And did you have a question?
Oh, sorry, no, it's a statement. No, a question is, I agree with the financial contribution of 50,000, but the question is, we must not dither about and not take it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councillor Nash.
Thanks, Chair. I welcome Paul's comments that he'll give us feedback and there won't be any commitments, but shouldn't there be a discussion about the direction we want to take before yourself and Steve go into those meetings?
Absolutely agree with that, Chair. Clearly, once the expected letter is received and that sets the timetable, then we will look to bring something back to members as quickly as possible. We are expecting the timetable to be very, very tight, so that may require extra meetings, but we'll look to do something to make sure that the views of this authority are reflected appropriately.
Councillor Burford.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst I support the recommendations, I'll certainly vote for it. I wonder to what extent the leadership and chief officers are considering the impact on Matlock, because there's going to be an enormous number of redundant buildings in the future, probably about half a dozen from the county or district, depending where the headquarters is of any due authority, of course, for this part of Derbyshire. So I really am concerned about the impact on the town of all this. Not apart from anything else, of course, we're going to lose a lot of staff, perhaps, if the new council is not centred here. But then there's all the other associated savings, I suppose, in terms of buildings. And we're going to be full of redundant and derelict, if we're not careful, former civic buildings.
It's an understandable point, Chair, but discussions have gone nowhere near those types of issues yet. But it is a valid point.
Councillor Bull.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Obviously, as Councillor Stack made the comment as regards, we knew this possibly was coming because of the devolution and all the rest before, forget the white paper that came. But my question being is, you want to work with the other districts and boroughs around. Is this looking back to what we went to Vision Derbyshire, where we wanted to try and be a unitary of our own? Are we looking into that side of it again?
There are no options on the table because we don't know yet what the rules are going to be laid down by government. Clearly there will be rule. The only one rule that we do know at the moment is they are looking at populations of 500,000 for unitary authorities. In that case, there will probably only be 2 across Derbyshire, because the population of Derbyshire is only about 1.1, 1.2 million, including Derby City. So there's a lot of discussions taking place within the LGA with the DCN, lots of webinars Councillor Flitter and I have attended, but there's not many answers at the moment.
Councillor G.
Yeah, just on this issue, because I don't really want to talk about dismembering Derbyshire Dales District Council at all, really, because I love Derbyshire Dales District Council, but nevertheless I've heard a lot of models talked about. And one of the things that, these rules around population and the discussions, because I've heard that it's got to be 500,000, but I've also heard that there's no upper limit. Is that correct? And I'm sure, because I've just Googled Derbyshire population, and on here it says 803,000. Now, if there are any discussions, and I was interested in that, why couldn't you have just one council for Derbyshire for the whole of the population, like they've got in Cornwall, like the model in Cornwall? Why does it have to be Derby City and then the rest of Derbyshire? Why, there's ideas about... I know we're not debating that, but I just wanted to say it because this is like the discussion about one day we could actually be asked to discuss it, because we don't. It all happens somewhere else.
I think Councillor G has a question about the population of Derbyshire, which Paul.
The population of Derbyshire is over 1 million if you include Derby City.
You can't believe everything you see on the internet, I'm afraid. Are there any further questions? Councillor Nash.
Sorry to prolong the debate. I perhaps should have asked this question in the last section, but I'm conscious this is likely to take a lot of Paul's time and he's already doing several jobs. do we need to be looking at providing some extra support for him and the CLT?
Well, members have just approved the appointment of a corporate director post, so that is an additional resource which we would utilise. But just to come back to the population issue for avoidance of doubt, the 2023 population of Derbyshire was 1,078,000, so it's a lot more than 800,000.
Okay, we've had all the, one final question, I think, Councillor Maelstrom.
Yeah, sorry. What power do we actually have to influence these discussions at all? Do we realistically have any influence, or is this just going to be more a reporting back exercise?
I think this is why it's important that we're around the table, because the political makeup of Derbyshire districts and boroughs at the moment is predominantly Labour authorities. The Labour leaders of those authorities have been very gracious, and they've included us, and Councillor Flitt in particular, within discussions so that we are party to what they're talking about. But I think the key thing is that government is looking for a unified proposal to be submitted. There is some doubt whether that's going to be possible, because the County Council have already submitted their proposal, which is for a county Derbyshire excluding Derby City. I'm not sure that is the proposal which the districts and boroughs would necessarily go with, but nonetheless government is expecting a unified proposal to be agreed and submitted in due course.
Okay, that's the end of questions. Do we have a proposer? Councillor Dobbs.
Yes, I'm happy to propose the two that we had notice of and the one that Paul
Yes.
has added now. I mean, this is just about having people in the room with an official role, isn't it, really? I imagine the various political groups will be discussing, as options emerge, what is their political preference, and then we'll come back and discuss it so we have an opinion of Derbyshire Dales. But we're a long way from that at the moment. I do thank Paul for his overview. And if you are unfamiliar with any of this, the BBC did quite a good version of all the options that are being kicked around at the moment, none of which, of course, have been settled because there isn't enough information available from government. But I urge everybody to support this, because we have to be in the room to influence the room.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dobbs, for reminding us that we actually have 3 recommendations here. Yes, do we have a second?
Chair, can you just remind us what the 50,000 was actually for?
Yeah. I believe that was going to be from the General Reserve to prepare an options appraisal. Is that right?
Yes, so what we're expecting, Chair, is that, as I just said, the government is going to expect a proposal to be submitted on behalf of district and borough councils. In order to do that, the authorities would need to commission some external support. Companies such as KPMG, PwC, there are many of them. And other authorities are effectively putting into a fund in order that that work could be commissioned and procured. But the details of that would come through Council in due course. So it's effectively putting us on a footing whereby we can commission expertise quickly and respond to whatever deadline government imposes upon us.
Thank you. So we've had a proposer. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Wilson.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Okay, thank you. In which case we're into debate. Does anybody wish to discuss this further? Councillor G.
I don't think we should be spending £50,000 on this, because we can talk about it in this room, but we haven't got a proper influence on it. So it's just £50,000 down the Swanee, to be honest. I want to vote against it.
Okay. Is that a move to have a split vote on the recommendations? No. Okay. Anybody else wish to speak in debate? So we've got a proposer and a seconder for all 3 recommendations. I am asked again if we want to take those separately. We didn't have a councillor putting forward that as an option, so I'm going to go with all 3 recommendations in one go. So can we have a vote in favour of that, please? And can we have a vote against? And any abstentions? I believe that is carried. I thank you all for your patience tonight, and have a safe journey home.